Ladies and gentlemen, EDG!
Всем привет, с вами Мастер, и значит вы смотрите чемпионат мира по Лиге Легенд. И сегодня мы будем смотреть, пожалуй, самый интересный четвертьфинал. Это китайский Edward Gaming против Европы, против Fnatic'ов. И сложно, очень сложно в данной ситуации вообще делать на кого-либо ставки. Потому что, Edward Gaming, конечно, проиграли только СК Телекому на групповом этапе. Ну, а Fnatic вообще два поражения у них было двум разным командам. И, это наводит на определенные мысли, что можно их уничтожать, причем довольно-таки доминируя при этом. Поэтому непостоянство Fnatic'ов, оно немного так компенсирует. Но и не забываем, что Edward Gaming у нас является обладателем титула чемпионов Mid-Season Invitation. Это такой чемпионат мира в середине сезона для того, чтобы разнообразить маленько, для того, чтобы дать возможность командам готовиться и улучшать свои возможности игры. Поэтому смотрим, к чему это все приведет. Очень сильные составы у обеих команд. Поэтому как-то прогнозировать что-то где-то как-то чрезвычайно сложно в данной ситуации. Поэтому ждем игры, чтобы вживую увидеть, что и на что способны команды. Из сильных сторон Edward Gaming, пожалуй, стоит отметить то, что они очень хорошо умеют играть в затяжные серии, поэтому проще в данной ситуации.
The relationship they have between each other, they are good friends. But when I look at them both, they have a lot of history. They faced each other at Worlds last year. Samsung Blue versus Fnatic. I think, of course, Fnatic won once and Samsung Blue won once. There's a lot of history here when you're looking at these two teams. But of course, they're on. You saw Reckless going to, I think it was Alliance. And of course, after that, he was on Alliance and it looked kind of poor. And after that, he changed as a player. I think that is the most important thing. He's changed as a player and he kind of fit into the role as the defensive player in Fnatic. And on Alliance, he got the criticism that he was very passive. And I feel on Fnatic, that role is perfect for him because they're playing around the top lane. In Deft as well, he was known as the teamfight AD carry. Like when I think of Deft, I also think of Imp, like Charizard and Blastoise in a way. And of course, Def was the teamfight AD carry, Imp was the laner. And I feel like Def now, with EDG, he has evolved a lot because they're playing around him. He's dominant in lane and he's becoming a perfect AD carry.
Yeah, Reckless himself has been outspoken about the fact that he's happy to take
kind of a backseat on the team, play champions like Silver or Kennen now, the new AD. So happy about that. I'm very happy about that. The Runon's Hurricane Kennen, but picked up, to be that kind of supportive team fight AD. Приводится немного такая история Реклза, что он успел поиграть, то есть он тоже уходил из Fnatic'ов, он успел поиграть за Альянс, где там собирался очень-очень сильный состав, во главе с Фрогином. Однако ни к чему вообще не пришли, они еле отстояли место в LCS с этой командой, потому что у них был шанс вообще вылететь из LCS, несмотря на звездный состав.
И Реклс играет пассивно на лайне, и он такой тимфайт ориентированный, АДК, он очень хорошо себя позиционирует, очень хорошо его команда закрывает, но вот ситуации он не создает. У Дефта же обратная ситуация, он очень силен индивидуально, он постоянно обостряет, он умеет создавать сам ситуации, и команда играет от него в том числе. Поэтому очень большая разница здесь между командами. И Дефт в данной ситуации мне нравится больше.
But on the other side of the rift, you have to say probably the most improved jungler coming into this tournament has been Fnatic jungler Reignover. He's been an absolute monster in the early game. He's facilitated the top lane ganks. He's been able to get Huni
Ну и Клерлов представляет нам лесника команды Nord Gaming. И у него kill participation почти 87%. То есть он участвует в 87% убийств в своей команде. Ну это вообще какой-то нереальный показатель, приближающийся к 100%. То есть очень-очень велика роль лесника. Ну а Клерлав это один из сильнейших лесников в мире, если не самый лучший. Ну, а Рейнджховер не так активен. Сейчас было бы любопытно, конечно, посмотреть статистику еще Рейнджховера, что он сможет противопоставить.
Considering the Reignover Clearlove matchup and the possible 2v2s in the top lane, where do we expect that top lane matchup to go?
Honestly, the way things have been looking, if we see the same performances from both these teams as in the group stages, Fnatic will win the top lane because they put more resources into it at the moment. Koro, he has played the tanks in the past, the Maokai, the Gnar, and tried to play safe, and he doesn't get as many resources. They like to play to their bottom lane on EDG, and they like to get an advantage there. And that's something that hit them pretty hard during the group stages on EDG's side. They're focusing bottom lane, but Amazing J wasn't playing safe enough, and he got ganked, and he would die in the top lane. So that's what they're trying to remedy as well.
Something that we need to pay attention to an extra much in this particular matchup, I feel, is the Elise.
Huni getting some love right now. Just have to interject right now. You hear the fans.
And of course, Reignover, which I assume he's gonna get the Elise. When I think of the Elise,
не сила плюс мораль для Хуни. Зал постоянно скандирует. И тренер, обратите внимание, тренер ему подсказал, что надо бы ответить залу, хотя бы рукой помахать.
Then I think Reignover is going to sway that in his favor.
Yeah, I think that we also have to take a look at the caliber of top laners that the LPL currently has, and there are some very aggressive top laners, and historically Koro has done very well in the matchups, and even at MSI, Koro did incredibly well against Huni. He's someone that likes to not exert dominance over the lane, but he absorbs a lot of pressure and plays a fantastic mana. So these are champions that are very hard to turret dive. As soon as they go Maggie, you can't commit to it because there's just way too much CC in their kit. And I actually think that's why they've brought it in. Even during the Road to Worlds when EDG were performing well around their top laner, they threw no resources into Amazing J. He would get these 5-kill leads. He was having 12-1 Olaf games, but he would randomly die at tier 2 turrets because he's just over aggressive. And I think that's why the swap has come in. Even if Amazing J was able to beat Huni in lane, he would be exploited throughout the mid stages of the game because Huni always gets Huni type plays throughout a stage of the game, and I think that is where Koro will be able to shine in this matchup. He is very good in 2v1 situations.
All right, well, we want to get your thoughts on this quarterfinal showdown. Hop on Twitter and tell us which player or lane will have the biggest impact today and why. Send your answers to @LolEsports with the hashtag Worlds so we can check in with you later today. The teams are just about ready on stage, but before we kick it off with this series, I want to know who you guys think will be moving on to the semifinals, starting with you, Yamato.
I have full faith in the European League of Legends simply because I'm going to go for Fnatic, obviously. Because in this current meta, there is very, very little room to ban out players like Reignover and Fabiven, because the last time these two faced, we saw the Azir ban, the Cassiopeia ban, and Fabiven struggled. There is no room for that. Fnatic have the first seed, they have blue side 3 times, and I think they're going to take it.
All right.
I disagree on one point. I think that this matchup will come down to junglers being banned out. I think that Clearlove will be targeted, and I also think Reignover will be heavily targeted from both sides of the rift. And I think that Pawn has a pocket pick in the Viger that can very much control Fabiven's champion pool. I expect this game to be very polarizing on top and bottom side of the rift. I think Fnatic have a huge advantage top lane, and if they are going to need to exploit it, and EDG playing around their bottom lane should be able to get the better off of that matchup. I am going for EDG, but I think this will be our first 5-game series, and I think this is incredibly close.
All right, Zyrene, time to break the tie.
It is incredibly close. And I've been thinking about this matchup a lot. And when you look over at these two teams, you look at EDG, they look at this great army that has had a lot of success, but they've faltered a little bit. They've lost their general. Their general's coming back in, but they've moved on. It's no longer about shooting bows, it's about your guns. What accuracy is Cora having in the top lane? And you know what? This is real life. This isn't one of those fantasy books. I don't think he has the practice to pull it off. I don't. Yeah, this is a video game in real life.
I'm sorry to interrupt your speech.
It's over. You will.
Должненько ставит на Fnatic'ов.
Guns to carry in the top lane. I think Huni has his number. I think Fnatic's going to take it home. I think they have hometown advantage, and I also think blue side for them is going to be big here. I'm going with Fnatic today. Euphoria.
Very strong endorsement from Zyrene there. Well, the predictions
тем интереснее будет, если Spawn выиграет. Тогда будет очень интересно и круто. О, что-то.
I think what me and Deft have is a very, very unique friendship, which is something different from what usually friendship, a normal friendship would be.
일단 후니 선수도 프나틱 가기 전에
Well, I guess it basically all started last year. My eye catched him, along the way when I was looking for people to look up to. I was a big fan of him. I even named one of my accounts like European Dev. He thought that was super cool. So he actually reached out to me and added me on the league client when we went to boot camp in Korea. So for me, that made me feel really appreciated, as a person and as a player.
작년에는 제가 삼성 블루라는 팀에서 푸나틱이랑 붙게 됐었는데 저희가 한 판 졌었어요.
I saw Deft crying after the game, and I really respect him, and I went to him after the game and I gave him a hug and I said, shit happens, in the end, life continues, you will do better next time, and I think he was really grateful for it.
되게 착해요. 착한 부분 때문에 친해지게 됐고 월드컵이 끝나고 나서도 스카이프나 그런 걸 통해서 게임 내적인 거 정보 같은 것도 공유해서 친해지게 됐고.
So we can talk about things very, very deep into the game. There's nothing to lose, right? If I share some secrets with Deft and he shares some with me, and then we both evolve as a player.
중국이랑 또 한국이랑 북미랑 유럽이랑 이렇게 메타나 또 쓰는 챔피언들이 되게 다른데 분명 배워야 할 게 서로 있는데 만약에 제가 오클리스 선수가 없었으면은 그냥 배우지 못했을 것들을 이렇게 대화 스카이프 같은 걸 통해서 알게 되고.
What I have with Deft is just different from what I think many other people do not have. That we can speak about these kind of things without it influencing my game badly when I'm facing him or his game badly when he's facing me, because that happens so rarely. But when it actually does, we're both kind of in our ultimate form.
Fnatic has to face EDG. What a tough challenge.
저 펜성할 때 만나게 된 걸 보고 원래 결승에서나 만나고 싶었는데 너무 빨리 만나게 된 것 같아서 좀 그랬어요.
I mean, obviously I want to win as well. That's why I'm here, and that's why he's here as well. But I think in the end I would be more than happy to see him win as well as myself.
이게 작년에도 데크리 선수가 우승하라고 꼭 그랬었는데 제가 우승을 못했었는데 이번에는 꼭 둘 중에 한 명이 우승했으면 좋겠어요.
I think it's super cool what we have because we seem to understand each other on such a personal base, even though we actually don't even speak the same language. I do something for a living that only a few people around the world does the same, right? And he's one of them.
Absolutely fantastic video about two truly world-class AD carries. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Trevor Quickshot Henry, shooting down the cast with Sam, Kobe Hartman Kensler, and Martin DeFicio Lunga. We're about to get ready for Fnatic versus Edward Gaming. This is the first quarterfinal on the bottom half of the bracket. And while the players are getting ready for picks and bans, let's talk a little bit about picks and bans. Is Fnatic going to play around Reckless? DeFicio, yes or no?
No for game one, unless they surprise us. And Fnatic is a team who's not afraid of putting out new things. In these very important games, MSI, the Cassiopeia top lane against Team Solar Mid, was so effective they knocked them out of the tournament from basically game one. So they're not afraid of pulling out these new picks. They can do it in the first game, but I'm not expecting it.
Yeah, it's actually a really interesting matchup between AD carries because we have Reckless, the utility AD carry so far, with the Kennen and Sivir pick so far, whereas Deft has gone with the hard carry, the Kalista, the Jinx. Will we see, some more interesting picks like the Ashe or something come out for Reckless when they're older? Their final form. He said it's going to be their final form. Is the final form of Reckless and Deft just perfect CS, never trading?
We'll find out once we get into this best of five. But let's also talk about some of the more specific champions. Tom Kench, Fnatic, had such a difficulty with this guy.
Strongest champion in the game.
Against AHQ, they had to try get past him, and eventually did, but it took a monumental effort. And truthfully, Fnatic were on the verge of losing that game to AHQ in the group stage.
That game was lost. All inhibitors were down, and there was just one team fight left. Fabian went crazy, won it for Fnatic. But Tom Kench is going to be such a problem for them. We haven't seen Yellowstar play more than once, and that was back in the final of the EU LCS against Origin. I'm sure he can play it, but if you don't play around your AD carry like Fnatic doesn't do, Tom Kench doesn't have that much value.
Yeah, and as for EDG's bans, I think since they're on red side, they may just be locked into the Gangplank, Mordekaiser, and Elise.
Yeah.
As I said many times, you don't want to give the Elise over to Reignover. He's already proven he will perform with that champion on the international stage. And it's just too much early game pressure to deal with.
And I definitely agree with the first two bans from Fnatic. Kalista against Jeff, you know he can play it really well. You don't want to risk that 2v2 early lane. Tom Kench coming, we just said it.
On the bench again.
Fnatic doesn't want to play it themselves right now with the style they're using. So instead they just ban it away to avoid Mako picking it.
First pick jungler, it is Rek'Sai as Elise has been taken off the table. And ClearLab has actually had Elise banned against him 3 times this tournament already.
But we can really see what Fnatic is doing here, right? It's an AD carry ban and then 2 bans on targets that could buff up that AD carry or make it almost unkillable with the Tom Kench. So really, they know EDG wants to play around Deft.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of the reasons that this matchup between Fnatic and EDG is so interesting because it's such
Вряд ли в первой игре Edward Gaming соберутся что-то показывать такое прям интересное. Все в мире, все как обычно. И трэш для мейка.
And I think that's the key thing because EDG knows Rek'Sai will be the first pick when they ban away that Elise to kind of say Reignover, take your second best champion now and also take that away from ClearLab. But he's played this matchup time and time again. He's fine with this. He gives the scaling jungler towards the team fights late on in the game. And of course, Thresh, we've seen for Mako, the pick potential these two guys have.
О, Шака было бы круто посмотреть хоть. На просцене, а то просто считанные разы, когда его брали.
Because EDG will have to reveal either their mid lane or their top lane first. I expect EDG to save mid lane pick for pawn. So if you reveal the top lane, then Fnatic can actually counter pick top lane next round.
And this is one of the reasons next Kennen can obviously go not support in this case with Alistar, but can go top lane, can go for Reckless or 2 Reckless as the AD carry. But what EDG can do with Coral down this lineup and why I think they swapped him in, and one of the reasons for it is the fact he can play a really good Gnar,
Ну, потому что если Kennen будет АДК, то он будет не керри, он такой ходячий стан с уроном. Да, дизенгейджа в основном, чтобы не улетали в него.
No, while Amazing J did make a lot of his own mistakes, the team also did not help him very often.
Ну и, кстати, Джейс будет хорошим, в принципе, пиком. Если что, сможет... Опа. Джейс для Полона?
In case it is Jace.
Да.
Okay, this pick. And it is.
Первый раз на чемпионате на этом. 71-й уникальный чемпион, использованный на этом чемпионате мира. Джейса мы еще не видели ни разу. И оставили Дефту. Видимо, вопрос. Ну, посмотрим, кстати. Теоретически Дефт может и на Джейсе сыграть. Раньше, по крайней мере, у китайцев были такие попытки. Однако Джейс немного все-таки не АДК. Хотя его, конечно, можно использовать. Ну и плюс можно будет не подходить и с безопасного расстояния харасить Кеннена. Хунин на Джарване.
Solo lane Jarvan or a solo lane Rek'Sai. Do you think
Huni will take it in top lane?
And he's done it before.
Yeah, we've seen this Jarvan before, and Reignover has never played Jarvan in competitive play. That would be a new one for him at least, but I'm expecting this one to go top into the Fiora matchup.
Видимо, Джейс все-таки будет АДК? Или нет?
Probably will happen, but instead we get the safe Victor as well.
If memory serves, when Huni did play that Jarvan top, it was against Elements, and the game was challenging, let's say.
He had a terrible start.
That's exactly it.
Nothing. And then, after like 20 minutes, his team was winning. He got like 5 kills, and it was like, oh, Jarvan seemed to work pretty well for Huni. But we didn't get to see that early game from him where he was super dominant. I hope it's going to be Twisted Fate for EDG. I think it fits in perfectly.
Да, то есть Дефт у нас будет на Джейсе. Давненько я этого не видел. И обе команды используют нестандартных АДК. Или Twisted Fate. Ну нет, не думаю, потому что слишком у него маленький рейндж. Потому что слишком маленький рейндж будет у Twisted Fate, и как только Реклс получит 6-й левел, у Твиста очень и очень плохо дела пойдут, особенно в купе с Алистером у соперников. Печально, печально будет. Игра вообще непредсказуемая, непонятно, чего ожидать от нее. И посмотрим, как Полон сможет использовать.
It is happening, and it is happening right in London. Get on Twitter with your votes. Hashtag FNCUN. If you think Euphoria is the way, or hashtag
Теперь должен вообще любителей нет и должны просто бомбить. Потому что как так? АДК без хила, еще и Джейс АДК. Такого не может быть. И прочий бред. Наконец-то мы дождались того, чего мы ждали от этой игры. То есть нестандартных пиков, возможность брать кого угодно, куда угодно. И мы наконец-то этого дождались.
And there's a lot of CC on the side of Fnatic, Alistar, Kennen, even Victor. with his own stunts. So there's a lot of ways for EDG in that very squishy line
Да,
over here
немного
to get
маловато
locked down,
контроля на
but so many
стороне у Edward Gaming.
teleports, long range poke from a Twisted Fate and Jace as well. If they start grouping, having that 1-4 set.
Ну и посмотрим, смогут нет они в принципе заполкать их, потому что Twisted Fate издалека спокойно может харасить своих соперников картами. Дефт может издалека накидывать, поэтому ставку, возможно, сделали на полк и безопасно прожимать. То есть я не думаю, что будут постоянные какие-то обострения. Ну, за исключением, пожалуй, полно.
But if I wanted to run teleport on my AD carry or on my support, I would do it against Fnatic. Because again, they are a
Ну и
team who does not
три
play around
телепорта
Breakers and
в
Yellowstone
команде
in the bottom
Edward
lane. They
Gaming.
will sit very
В лете
often
это
at the
очень и очень сильно
farm
может
alone
окупиться,
and get no help. So
потому
if you
что
know you always have your jungle as backup and then teleport from top and from mid,
Twisted
I would
Fate
feel
у нас
safe not
будет
running
с
cut
Личом
running
почти наверняка. То есть два АДшника и Макс с Личом. То есть если они будут пропушивать какую-нибудь вышку, так, и
for him, so he doesn't have to use an early potion. He gets the camp down faster and rushes towards the red buff. So he will be slightly ahead of Clear Up once he reaches that top side. But again, it puts Fnatic's bottom lane behind if they don't get a camp. Deft is level 2 already.
Deft использует.
Some additional potions from securing that Gromp. And gents, the theory of the AD carry teleport has been explained well. Let's see if EDG's communication can step up.
Теперь все понятно, зачем ему телепорт и то, что они грамотно так использовали.
But he's also not on a tank, so he may also want some assistance and some support on that Fiora.
Well, he's had about 4 or 5 weeks now to practice.
Так, и смотрите, обычно команды, получив второй левел, кто раньше, тот начинает обострять. Однако Edward Gaming фармят, ну потому что ну, это вих. В их планах, потому что необходимо собрать. То есть будет Мураману, Бруталайзер, у вас Твистер, ну и что-нибудь типа кровопийцы. Еще неплохо.
Careful, Rek'Sai going on top side. Don't risk the combo from a Jarvan that is so easy to set up a gang into the next knockup from Reignover.
Yeah, and he's actually using his teleport back
И Полн, быстренько закупившись, возвращается и Фабивану отдают первый синий.
Those cooldowns for the teleports, all of these laners are much weaker in lane. Really, the difference is going to have to come from the extra Doran's blade that Koro bought
versus the blue buff. That Featherfit has now been donated. First one of the
Ну,
game. So
Дефт пока решил не тратить ману, потому что у Кеннона в этой ситуации полегче, у него все на КД.
The bottom lane doesn't get a camp alone. They give it over to the jungler or to Uni normally. And Reignover rarely takes away his own blue buff early on because he gives it to Feb and he can use it more in that mid lane. So they're trying to really split the resources quite a lot. And because they're playing a utility AD carry, they don't care about Regulus falling 5-10 CS behind.
They're paying it forward. Bottom lane gave the leash to jungle, then jungle gave the early blue buff
then
to mid.
Gang for Huni.
Such great play. Okay, look at this invade from Clear Love though. Does get down some early wards. Now, as a jungler, whenever you go to your Raptor camp this early in the game and you see it not spawned, if Reignover goes over there and sees the Raptors have been cleared, you have to assume there's a ward in that brush. Because you've obviously been counter jungled there, this is literally the most common ward that junglers will place early in the game. Right now, just because he just switched over to a sweeper, he doesn't have it ready to activate, but he's got to know that he just went through wards.
Ну, понятно, куда пойдет рейндж-ховер. Не готовится поймать, однако...
And gets away relatively unscathed.
Yeah, Pawn jumped the gun there a little bit. They had him right where they wanted. Full vision on him, but pulls the trigger through.
Mountain showed us yesterday just how slippery a Rek'Sai can be. Reignover sticking around for this invade, and there's seems to be a little bit of movement from the mid lane. The Death Ray catches Pawn. Reignover's not going to get the knock up, and the
Так, и возможно будет ФБ, нет, выживает все-таки. И сейчас умрет Полн. И Хелсблад ушел Рейноверу. А, нет, повторил за комментатором. Ну и опоздал Карл.
Early on, February farms under control, Mages normally doesn't do a whole lot, but they really want to shut down his Twisted Fate. Early on, it meant Reignover showed himself twice, and EDG knew what was going on, but didn't respect the fact they didn't have a teleport from top, and who he did.
Yeah, actually they chalked that up to sort of a fumble by EDG, because they were the team with more information. They got played there, 3 teleports down, and they let Fnatic.
Так, и неплохо так Рэкл запрохарасили. И ни одной хилки у него уже нету на данный момент. И активировал ульту. И сейчас будет умирать. Умирать будет Хуни, однако... Нет, красная карта, к сожалению. И Хуни у нас без флеша. Нет, не смогут забрать. Очень неудачно появился Twisted Fate с красной картой. Был бы.
From the Twisted Fate of EDG,
Золотой.
not resulting in a kill.
And that is huge. What an outplay there from Uni. Waiting for Pawn to trigger.
Ну и смотрите, Пол у нас теперь довольно заметно по крипам проигрывает, уже 13 крипов на данный момент, потому что
home guards very early on, and you're not afraid of them just use your entire mana pool and pushing out a wave, recalling, proc the home guards, get mana back, and then go gang the lane. Obviously, Fnatic needs to constantly communicate. Whenever he's moving away from the lane, he has TP, and ulti will be up in a few minutes as well.
Because Victor can clear a wave so easily, though, you know, he's one of the best at punishing that roam. You know, Pawn went for the early play, and Forbidden's already up.
Ну, в принципе, для Фабиона очень хорошо Лич Бэйн зашел на этом этапе, потому что Twisted Fate будет постоянно уходить с лайна. Поэтому благодаря Личу он сможет просто махом сносить вышки и наказывать за такие перемещения.
But the build we're going to see from Def is going to be that tier into Brutalize, into Last Whisper, and so on. Huni again getting jumped on by Coral.
Relatively even. Huni's Golden Age just blocked some of that damage. Cora's going to get some additional sustain.
Yeah, you can see how defensively Coral has to play. Has to run away as soon as his riposte is on.
В принципе, по урону, по чистому ОД на стопере сейчас наравне. Не забываем про... Так, активировать ульту, и Хуни сейчас может умереть. И сейчас он умрет. Так, и умирает еще и Риксай. Наконец-то Пол удачно пришел. Сейчас посмотрим.
Huni right now, every time he gets a one-on-one against Coral, he's losing it, and he just died 1v1.
With 3 teleports and Twisted Fate ultimate, it's ridiculously hard for Fnatic to keep track of all the globals here, so they have to be very careful and very sure of their vision when they go for plays like this. Plus, right there, Huni committing, you know, to the 2 versus 2, actually trying to keep Coral from converging on Reignover and save Reignover there. Costing big. Coral with the almost instant 4 proc of the vitals. Really well done there by Coral.
Сделал хорошо своему сопернику. Подхилил 2 крипов, которые должны были вражеские крипы запинать, однако отдал их Дефу в итоге.
They even had the early sight zone here. Reignover's got the sight zone. You know, set up your defensive vision to keep track of Gragas. If you can keep track of Gragas, then plays can play defensively. Down bottom.
Так, ну и упомну теперь, смотрите, 15% КДРа Патина и 10% синего бафа. Поэтому довольно скоро у него уже откатится ульта, и Fnatic опять окажется под ударом. Так, а Джейс пошел, судя по всему, закончить Мураману свою.
All quarter-finalist mid laners, so he's going to have a little bit more pressure to make those side lane gank impacts more valuable.
Yeah, plus with this early home guard upgrade that you guys keep talking about, and the Twisted Fate ultimate back up. Go ahead. It's a great point because right now what you're looking for is the recall timers. Everybody's fighting around recall timers right now. Yes, it is about marginal CS leads, but it's the recall timer right before the big dragon fight setup here. You can already see Maker's trying to get the first line of wards down, trying to get some vision for themselves. Teleport's coming back off of cooldown.
Так, Хуни практически без маны уже. Однако не забываем про чистый урон Фиоры, появившийся у нее с недавних пор. Поэтому можно и очень-очень легко обмануться.
That's what Fnatic want to strike, but they cannot fall further behind.
Also, it's exactly where Victor shines. If Vivin can get to level 11 first, the huge amount of burst from that Victor ultimate can easily 100% somebody with a full combo of Victor if they're able to gain some vision around the area. The Yellowstar does get hooked in, though.
He's going to headbutt Deft away.
Так, и Хуни будет умирать, наверное. Хотя все еще непонятно, кто будет умирать. И нет, умер все-таки Хуни, и умрет Фиора. 2-1, и сейчас Фабивен. Однако видят. Умрет Клева. И в итоге 2-2. И это не очень хорошо, потому что уже 2 килла. 2 килла у нас имеет Виктор. Это один из самых хорошо сноуболящихся персонажей. Потому что у него очень и очень высокий урон. Поэтому это очень и очень плохо для геймера. В это время у нас Джарлан собирает гидру новую на ХП. Теперь он будет наносить урон по всем впереди стоящим соперникам еще дополнительно.
Pretty good. Just let's replay once more.
Yeah, and the highlight of this whole play is going to be Clearlove's ultimate on Gragas. So see here, Rainover does make a good play, knocking up Han inside the turret, but Clearlove right here, the target right back out. They're able to get their kill. Gold card there from Han. Coral does go a little bit too deep.
И вот зачем уходил Грагас в кусты, немного непонятно. Понятно, что должен был скоро подойти Виктор. Это необходимо было предполагать, и видно же было. Был вар. Видели, где движется Виктор. Так, а Пол неожиданно, смотрите, собирает God of Ages, и он собирается выживать как можно дольше. Так, и ульту активировал Фиона, однако вместе с этой ультой Хуни сбегает благополучно.
Already started roaming around the dragon down here on the bottom side. They want to get these team fights going.
On's going to get dove here. They've got Alistar coming in behind the turret.
Сейчас будет умирать он. И нет, он выжил! Это нечто! Ну и сейчас умрет, конечно же. И... страшно и классно! Классно сыграл Фоун.
It's just Yellow Star.
Is this actually going to happen? Yellow
Так, бычок попробует маленько. И нет, сейчас придет Виктор и уничтожит. Нет, нет, успел Клеолав отойти и потратил Yellow Star ульту и экзост, что хорошо для команды Edward Gaming, естественно, а Клеолав выжил в то же время, поэтому...
I love the chain reaction when there are so many globals in the game. One fight breaks out on one side of the map and immediately 3 other do. Now we also want to see...
Ну, Фиора у нас собрала все, что ей необходимо для того, чтобы... А нет, она, кстати, Гидру не закончила. Решила с колотушкой сначала. Так, и в опасности Фиора. Однако нет. Ушел Фабиго.
He's on Fiora, they have globals, they have pink wards early on for him as well. But this coordination and communication from EDG is what we didn't see from the Chinese teams in the group stage. They couldn't pull off these multiple TP plays. Right here, this play is so insane. On 3 lanes from EDG. Dive on top side, fight in the bottom lane, instant teleport down to join that one as well. Rainover trying to do his best out of a top side.
But yeah, 2 versus 1 is difficult.
Расщепила бочкой Крагаса.
Two people who have been shining lights for Fnatic. Huni and Rainover 0-3-2-1-4-1. Luckily for Fnatic, there is strong wave clear from Febiven's Victor. Unluckily, they may have to wave clear on multiple lanes thanks to all of the map pressure EDG can apply in the coming minutes. The second tower falls. Fnatic keep Gold League relatively close. 2,000.
Oh, well, we have another face check here. Let's wait for this fight to be over.
Huni's going to chase down. He's going to find the vital. Huni's going to slide himself to safety.
Хотел Корал забрать Хуни, однако уже некогда. И сейчас он будет умирать, потому что есть ульта у Фиоры. Не получилось. Не получилось бодислэмом сбить. И вот это вот опасно для Рейновера. Потому что... И утащили в очередной раз. Мейка творит просто чудеса. И из-под носа уводит своих союзников. Уже похоронили все Фнатики соперников, однако тут пришел трэш и все испортил.
Or because the mid lane dive that Fnatic were trying to pull off failed. When that tower dive failed with 4 people from Fnatic committed, EDG just got to spread across the map and punish Fnatic so heavily. If it wasn't for that, it would have been a trade. You know, just top lane Huni dying, 4 mid lane Pawn dying, and Fnatic would have got that.
Так, Дефт уже приближается к моменту, когда у него очень и очень много урона станет. Он уже собрал Мураману, собрал Бруталайзер, ботинки на КД, и, в принципе, ему не хватает только Ластвиспера для полного счастья. Ну, хотя, естественно, полное счастье возможно только при полном закупе.
For EDG, they are looking exceptional. Take a look at Pawn's build. Rod of Age has been stacking for 5 minutes. Lichbane is a second item. Thanks to Koro's kills and farm, he's got that Black Cleaver picked up, and even Deft has picked up some armor.
Преимущество не такое большое. Для 20-й минуты всего 2000.
On Fnatic's defense and allow EDG to siege.
И первым итемом у нас Фиора собирает Секиру. А не Гидру, как можно было бы предполагать, то есть она ограничилась на данный момент пока Тиаматом. Дефт приближается просто гигантскими темпами к Ластвиспину.
For Fnatic. So if EDG wants to play safe in some way, they keep running 1-3-1. With all these teleports here, have your Twisted Fate sit in mid and just keep going to both side lanes.
I think the thing that you do though is you combo your Twisted Fate with
Ну
your
и
Jace.
что-то должно в ближайшее время происходить, потому что есть все 3 телепорта, есть ульта от Twisted Fate, поэтому должны пытаться что-нибудь делать. И очень хорошо Мейка смог откинуть. Дефт умрет. И умирает еще и Фиора. Умрет Клеолав. И попахивает.
May set their sights on Baron. They've peeled backwards.
We just talked about how EDG does not want to group up because then the hard engage from Fnatic can happen. And what do we see? Well, they get the fight.
Нет, они уже берут.
Yes, they're going for Baron here, and it's just Pawn and Mako on the outside, going to try and poke them off of it here.
Дефт, в принципе, может. Он может заполкать их. Так, убили Алистера наконец-то и еще даблкилл для Кеннона. Что вообще происходит? Не получилось нормального тимфайта от Wargaming. Смогли поймать 3 в 5 и в итоге к тому моменту, когда вся команда подошла. И вот здесь вот поймали Fnatic. И все были уже поздно. Сейчас умрет Скоро.
Again, this time around, Fnatic catching Koro, the straggler.
What's going on here? We just praised EDG for the coordination there. Great communication, suddenly using 3 teleports. Koro just got completely caught out for absolutely no reason. Grouping up earlier as well. Get the team up for Fnatic. They just turned this game around.
You have to be so careful when you are running a high pressure team with multiple teleports. You have to coordinate your pressure. You can't just have one person splitting while the rest of you are half your team is purchasing in base. Everyone has to coordinate their wave pushes. Bottom and top need to push at the same time. There, Koro was just pushing by himself. Nobody else from EDG applying pressure. So Fnatic collapse and they get a nice kill. With Baron buff afterwards, it means they get a whole bunch of objectives afterwards.
Because Def was done so early on, he never got to deal damage. Вышку, никто даже не пытался сопротивляться.
Gives him some help. So congratulations to Fnatic. They knocked down the inner turret in the bottom lane. Knocked down the inner turret in the middle lane. They may lose their top lane. Pawn has got a large minion wave to play with. Has got a Lich Bane as well. So it's a 2-for-1 trade. And Fnatic are peeling backwards. Their recalls were interrupted.
This is a play EDG has pulled off quite a lot back in the LPL, but they're trying to always trade objectives. They knew, okay, we can't use defense properly. They could maybe even tower dive us if we tried to. Our only wave there is the Twisted Fate at the moment, so they use him instead just to get something. So they take a tower, but Fnatic can still be super happy with the last 5 minutes.
Especially with the Baron buff on Fnatic. So difficult to try and clear those minions. So EG do get something back for themselves during the duration.
But that was the whole discussion we had before here. What do you do with your EDG? Who do you send down to the second side lane? Because you have Fiora sitting in one of them split pushing. Do you send down Deft to sit on his own with the Jace because he doesn't offer that much wave clear in the mid lane and you want to have the Twisted Fate go to both lanes? Do you group them up and start poking? Again, that's so risky because of the hard engage that can happen. So they need to be able to put pressure on all 3 lanes. You can see Deft go towards top side now and set that 1-3-1 up for EDG. They're so far back on the map. It just becomes a lot more harder now.
And because Fnatic just got such a big mid-game play, they got a whole bunch of vision while they were doing that. Not only did they take down a bunch of turrets, but with a double Sightstone for Fnatic, they've been able to lay so much vision down in EDG territory. As soon as EDG try and set up one of these plays, that does take a while to get there, Fnatic will know about it.
Look at all those wards in the bottom half of the map. Pawn did walk over that pink ward, pinged it out, and has actually gone back to kill that resource for Fnatic. Dragon's up in 5 seconds. They do have the timer. They're deciding with all their information and shove those waves in as best we can and try to secure at least the first objective. Only 2 Dragons at 25 minutes. It's not been a primary focus for either of these teams.
It's all been about top lane, really. so far away from Dragon, basically all the plays in the early game. This just to get to 6%. Let's see what happens. Hooney's going on Taylor.
Yep, he's caught him.
Taylor's in trouble. He's going to get headbutted out of the Cataclysm, but Hooney follows up with a great Dragon Strike.
Another pick here for Fnatic. And again, that Dragon that Fnatic got is actually fairly big because, 26 minutes into the game, the 6% does mean a lot, and it was awarded to them because they had so much deep vision from that last push. On top of it, they catch Clear Love here. EDG starting to crumble.
Yeah, they really need to stop getting caught up because every time that happens, their split push breaks. Because suddenly now you have to back away from your side lane. You have to respect the fact Fnatic are 5 members on the map. So Koro now has to go really far back. He cannot use the big wave. Fnatic instead of another slow push and then start grouping again and look for another fight.
And of course, Clearlove, this isn't the first time he's been caught out of position. Much like Hooney, throughout the group stages, both players being a little over-aggressive in their positioning, maybe too far forward. All the tempo is now sitting with Fnatic.
I just want to re-highlight, how important we talked about Thresh is in this composition. Right there was a perfect example where Clearlove should have been with Mako. That is a support jungle duo that's supposed to be getting vision because Gragas Thresh is so safe if they are together. However, no Mako there. Clearlove gets caught. He gets pushed around. And they lose more space.
Momentum's continue to stack up. Koro's had the Ravenous Hydra versus the Titanic Hydra of Hooney. Muramana has been completed for Deft. And the 3-item spike for Reckless has come in. So everybody's scaling. Paul's got himself that hourglass as well. So a couple of tricky plays can be initiated with the Destiny. Fnatic playing it safe, pushing those waves out slowly but surely. Top will be going towards EDG in the next few moments. And that will give a couple of tools for Fnatic. A minute till Baron. Fnatic love Baron.
It's their thing.
I feel like EDG do as well.
Both teams often play so much around like these 25 minutes, get one fight, get a pick, and then take that Baron instantly and use it to close the game out. But for EDG in these team fights, if we get the 5-on-5, who do they want to kill? Obviously, we're looking at Reckless, we're looking at February. There's a cleanse on one of them, so that's very smart. That was a sacrifice by not having teleport early on. And then Kennen is one of these AD carries who play really well for himself because he has a massive AoE aura. He can stun you if Fiora goes in there with squishy targets and take them down.
Not only that, but going with this build for Reckless, it's all based around sustain and auto attack speed. So he's getting off multiple stuns, multiple charges, and you just buy a little bit of time, steal up more life because you're life stealing on all of these targets with your double life steal build. If you don't focus him and burst him down, then he'll sustain through the whole fight. He'll continue to throw out these annoying mini stuns and provide that CC that Fnatic need because they have Hooney who likes to run damage on top.
And if we get an aggressive ulti in the backline from a Twisted Fate to lockdown attack, then all 5 members of EDG are stuck in there. They're all trying to get to the same guy. 2 melee champions for Deft and Koro, but well, Deft when he wants to burst at least.
Yellow Star again.
2 teleports available for EDG as their solos are down in the bottom. Double stun and Clearlove and Mako. They've already got Mako. Clearlove's looking to get away as Reckless looks for the stun. Finds it. May not get another. Continues to auto attack. 2 members down. With Dangerous Blade, Fnatic may need to defend. Koro and Paul, they've got an inner turret. They've got a minion wave to work with. And Fnatic, they're a little split. Hooney's decided to back away. Feathervin is already in the base, and the rest of the team on Baron.
Yep, he can't do it by himself. It doesn't matter. Khan and Koro are going to be able to take this, and he's also got to be careful about getting killed. Let's see if Fnatic can take that Baron.
Coming.
Koro's in so much trouble. The Cataclysm locks them both in, and with the Chaos Storm and the Death Ray, Feathervin's already got a kill. The knockup doesn't connect, but it does not matter.
Hooney comes in to dunk while they take the Baron. Now Fnatic can press in. They should get an inhibitor off of this.
And much like the first time we saw Hooney play Jarvan, he got shut down in the early game, but once we get past the laning phase, he's able to create picks with the rest of his team. But this really is Fnatic knowing how strong they are around Baron. The way they set it up, they force EDG to come face check, flank around them, get the engage once again, and they manage to constantly force team fights on EDG.
Part of the reason why quadruple global teleport comps are so rare is because they take so much precision to pull off. Quite a lofty task.
So I will admit, after watching this Jace pick from Deft, I was super hyped at first because you talked about how he played it so
we were on it, but it hasn't really
He's really done absolutely nothing.
Meanwhile, the Kennen, huge for Reckless.
Even laning phase, completely even. Deft always used his teleport back to lane. He had no pressure on the map really. Huni's gonna catch him.
Well, a little bit of trouble here for Pawn. Lock up, not gonna happen. Pawn makes it out with 200 hit points, but Fnatic with the Baron empowered minions, they're knocking on the middle and bottom lanes. There's a teleport to the inhibitor. Pawn is going to secure this one. He may even be able to get out alive. He's definitely been reviewing the backdoor tactics.
No minions though,
but who's got home guards though? He's got home guards. He's coming in for the repeat dunk.
There is no Cataclysm. I think losing one life for supers might be worth it if the rest of EDG can defend. There's no teleport for Huni.
But he was the wave there that just disappeared to take an inhibitor, nothing else. There was no minions, so he couldn't go further and threatened to backdoor the Nexus as well. So Fnatic knew, okay, well, he's gonna get one, but now we don't really care because he's gone. We can easily just push up. Huni's going to join his team, and that's 5 members from Fnatic. They can dive EDG super easy.
Cataclysm's only a few seconds away, but this tower is down. It has been deconstructed in front of EDG's faces. The second inhibitor falls, and there are supers on 2 lanes for Fnatic. This is the single lane for EDG.
I do not think that was worth it. Just even if you traded 1-for-1 in terms of inhibitors, because Huni could even
как-то разочаровывают пока китайцы, потому что вообще не вижу я, чтобы Deft где-то задействован был. Где возможность, чтобы паукать безопасного расстояния своих соперников? Где вот эта возможность? Какие-то 2 странных тимфайта, когда 3 в 5 сливаются Эдвард. Фнатики убивают Эдвард Гейминг, и все. Ну ладно, хоть смогли взять один ингибитор, ну хотя бы чуть-чуть полегче уже будет.
Like 30 attack damage, 32 minutes in is not a massive upgrade for a very expensive item, but it seems to be
Ну и проблема в том, что Фиору сейчас очень сложно будет Эдвард Гейминг задействовать. Потому что ей необходимо влетать, но там столько контроля, что она прямо там и окажется. Вот, зашел.
Fnatic are waiting for those supers. They're pushing through the middle lane quite deep. Unfortunately for Fnatic, there's going to be multiple supers in the bottom lane pushing against him. So there is a little bit of a timer working against this top lane siege.
Yeah, right now EDG are hoping that Fnatic stick around and are a little bit too aggressive, because EDG's only chance here is to make an all-in at the turret. Whereas Fnatic can just wait around. They've got all of the cards.
We'll see when they reveal them, Kobe. Minion wave.
Слишком толстый уже сейчас Джарван. Не пробивает его. Дефт. И посмотрим, сможет, нет, умирает Реглс наконец-то. И должен Хуни умереть. Наконец-то дождались они этого момента.
Two Koros score, Fnatic lose 4.
EDG do it. They pull off the only thing that they possibly could, and all in under the turret. And they, well, can they chase down Forbidden here? It looks like Koro's going to be able to...
Look at all the minions on the bottom side here. There's double teleport for EDG if they want to take that wave and start pushing in towards them. They want the kill first.
Сейчас должен умирать Forbidden.
Forbidden needs to buy time. There's 20 seconds before his teammates are alive. And if EDG are unlucky,
очень-очень рядом был Дефт с тем, чтобы умереть.
Right here for Fnatic, they got a little bit too greedy for that tower. Reckless walked up very close, 550 range, took a massive hit in the face from Deft, and then the flash forward. There's no cleanse for him, no QSS, nothing to save him. That was EDG needed. They invested everything to kill him.
They just dropped all the cards. Everybody up on the turret is exactly as you said, and then
вот хорошо попал Дефт.
Pawn goes in for the flash gold card on Reckless. That's a signal. Clear Love flashes in, and they're able to take him out immediately.
So key that Clear Love flashes forward. Otherwise, Yellowstar might have been able to just headbutt him away and avoid Reckless being shot back into the team, but he flashes forward there. He guarantees it's gonna happen. They win the fight.
Exactly. They knew this was their only option.
Вот это надо повторять раз за разом. Edward Gaming, вот этот вот маневр. Необходимо, чтобы Deft заранее прохорашивал их и потом только что-то пытаться делать.
That fight could have been. This time around, Reckless gets dunked and deals no damage that fight, thanks to the great work of Pawn, Poro, and Clearlud. Fnatic, their 10k gold lead has shrunk to 4k, and inhibitors will be respawning very soon for EDG, so this will reset the map pressure.
Yeah, Baron's up in 20 seconds though.
Так, ну и скоро должны подняться оба ингибитора у Edward Gaming. Первый поднялся, сейчас будет второй.
And as long as you bait around Baron, it's so easy to go push out top and mid lanes at the same time for Fnatic. So this will nullify the globals a little bit from EDG and make it easier for Fnatic to get a 5-on-5 team fight. You even saw Rooney with
так, и все три телепорта активны.
He knows they're going to be wards behind EDG and he wants to guarantee that engage.
This is the most intense moment for the shot callers. This is where you make or break the game.
There's no room for mechanical misplays.
Every second means Pawn gets closer and
сейчас
closer to that
следующая ошибка будет стоить игры любой команде просто.
Rainover goes back and he's left the tunnel. They're going to commit.
Death Sentence finds Yellow Star, and the Baron's being bursted so quickly. Pawn has started to channel his TP, but it may be too late. 2,500 hit points on Baron. Will it get secured by
Нет, не смогли.
It does. The knockup finds 2. The dunk finds 4. And the Maelstrom melts Edward Gaming, sending a massive message that Fnatic want to win the first game in this series. Koro and Deft are running for their lives, and they will
Они уже решили просто уничтожить.
Deft will drop the hammer, but it will not matter. Reckless gets the kill, 9, 2, and 4, and Fnatic should knock down the Nexus.
EDG unable to use the split push because of the Baron, and you saw Yellowstar sit ready to headbutt Clearlove away, so he couldn't get close. He had to just try and throw in his ulti. Wasn't enough, and Fnatic are looking to take the first game.
Fnatic have got Baron-empowered minions knocking down the Nexus. Koro will follow shortly, and as Edward Gaming are ace, Fnatic take the advantage and are one step closer to a semi-final spot.
Great decisive mid-game there from Fnatic. Yellowstar and Co making a huge turnaround.
And that is so key for Fnatic because they were on blue side in this game here.
Не зашла Фиора в этой игре, потому что такой недополк получился и мало контроля в тимфайтах. Ну и плюс, не знаю, все-таки очень и очень плохо себя в этой игре показал Deft. Не дают, не давали возможности Дефту заполнить. Перед тимфайтами они обычно умирали. Втроем умрут и что после этого? Ничего, абсолютно ничего. Печаль. Я в расстройстве. Отвратительная игра в исполнении Edward Gaming, потому что, куча ошибок, такое преимущество было. 8 киллов на 3 было у Edward Gaming. Вышки, все хорошо, нет же. Несколько дурацких, абсолютно идиотских тимфайтов, когда они сливались и все. И после этого ничего не могли сделать. Ну вы взяли, окей, вы взяли Джейса, так дайте заполкать. У вас есть Twisted Fate, который может издалека картами кидать.
Thank you very much, guys. I'm joined here by Jat and Freak to break down that very first game of Fnatic versus EDG. What a game it was! Fantastic game. Let's just start with that.
Счастливые стоят, потому что они-то на Fnatic'ов ставили.
Teleport come out. That was interesting for sure. We got to see some really tenacious calls as well. The 21-minute semi-ace where Yellowster makes the right call to go for Baron because the chance of a steal is actually quite low. A lot of very, very smart choices made this game.
A lot of stuff. So let's start by the early game and the picks that came out. Obviously, the Jace AD carry, but maybe more surprising, all of the teleports. How did EDG use that to their advantage in the early game?
Yeah, so interestingly enough for EDG, the Jace teleport never actually teleported to make a positive play, so it played out mostly like a double teleport team with Twisted Fate, which still had a global advantage, and they mainly used the teleport bottom to try and keep map pressure on that side. You would have actually expected Fnatic to attack the teleporting AD carry since he had no second defensive summoner a little bit more early on in the game. But because that wasn't happening, EDG kept finding numbers advantages throughout the rest of the match.
And something for Fnatic, sorry to cut in, which is a change from sometimes the overconfident plays we see them make in the past couple of weeks. When it happened a couple of times that they got dove on with a couple of teleports, the next time they were careful and they waited it out.
I mean, yes and no. We actually saw a lot of kind of bad plays. There was the kill that was initially off screen and the replay happened. Reignover chasing into a 1v2 under his own turret after Huni already got dived. Reignover's like, me too, I'll give you some kills. And the Koreans on Fnatic started out like 2-7 total or something like that. And a lot of that, to be honest, not to blame Huni for this one, but he picked himself into a bad one-on-one matchup. Jarvan's never going to 1v1 Fiora, to my knowledge. But for the team fight, it makes a whole lot of sense. Be a follow-up CC. So picking for the team fight rather than the lane, EDG correctly identified to attack the lane in the laning phase because it's going to work, and sure enough, it did. But then the team fight's exactly what Fnatic picked for. Those did work out.
Yeah, then let's take a look at one of those team fights that swung the game back in the favor of Fnatic when they grew
Ну и да, то, что мы
showed
смогли
what they
увидеть,
could do versus that EDG composition.
немного странновато, конечно, композиция вот в этом гейме не нравится им. Они очень хорошо сыграли на лайн-фазе, они выиграли ее благодаря, естественно, ульте Twisted Fate.
Are mainly good for Fnatic because most people are stunned inside Reckless's cannon ultimate. Every time Fnatic could successfully group, they had the superior team fight composition.
Ну и вот здесь Грагас сейчас кинул бочку и не взорвал ее. Замедли и все, ушли бы спокойно.
Between the windows of being exploited by EDG's global compositions are ultimately what won them the game. And as Freak was saying earlier, this was an incredibly smart Baron call.
Right, so the only guys alive are Mako and Pawn, and Yellowster, look at him, he's gonna
Хорошо, Пон зацепил всех.
so he happily walks in and out. He doesn't really care. The rest of Fnatic off take it properly.
Ну и слишком много урона, конечно, Виктор. Просто уничтожал соперников, плюс у него почти все едок, то есть бьющая по площади. Ну и, блин, классные моменты в исполнении Мейка было. Несколько раз он спасал своих тиммейтов от 100% смерти.
They give them kind of an insurance when it went awry in the late game, because whenever they do win a fight, they could put the pressure on
эти злосчастные телепорты, то есть вообще они дают очень высокое преимущество, особенно в последней части игры. Особенно с учетом того, что два АДшника с телепортами, то есть они просто уничтожают вышки. И никак абсолютно этим Edward Gaming не воспользовались. Меня это печалит. То есть вот здесь они выиграли благодаря тому, что, во-первых, Реклс плохо спозиционировался, вышел вперед. Ну и потому что Дефт попал наконец-то шариком.
And Koro honestly navigated these team fights beautifully. He's against a big team of AoE crowd control and still finds ways to turn on the ultimate, proc all 4 vitals, get a big heal, where if the team doesn't get one shot, 700 health was back to the team, and EDG wins those fights.
Yeah, one thing I really liked about this game, though, was the willingness of both teams to pick fights. The bloodiness in this game was really high. We were nearing a kill per minute by the end of it, which is by far higher than the average at Worlds, and also higher than the average from the LPL or the European LCS. And I actually think we're going to be seeing a lot more of that from these teams just out of the picks from game one. Huni very willing to pick an aggressive choice, very willing to opt into weaknesses to get advantages elsewhere. So we're seeing a lot of mismatches just based on the coaching and picks and bans, which always leads to more interesting games.
Yeah, but maybe to close this off, we did see the teleport strat in game one coming out of EDG. Will they completely overhaul that strategy? Would you?
I mean, maybe. Honestly, like, Def's teleport meant very little.
Yeah.
Okay, you got to take Gromp and TP in for some wards, extra potions. And his 2-on-2, despite facing a fairly scary duo lane, got to get back and get more farm, but that teleport meant basically nothing. It was a comp we've seen the entire time of the tournament. TP mid laner, no surprise. TF, no surprise. Defs meant very little.
Yeah, I think double TP is the thing we're going to continue to see. I don't think triple TP is the thing we're going to continue to see, and I expect Def to pick more to win the lane. I think he can punish Reckless's Kennen if he continues to go for that pick. He's been practicing a lot of Caitlyn, which is something we saw yesterday, and has a very favorable matchup against the Kennen if they can manipulate that lane matchup. So I think that's what we're going to see from EDG in the next game.
Yeah, a lot of tools to work with from both sides, but it was a fantastic game one. We're going to step away for 1 second, or a couple of minutes actually, but when we come back, it's going to be game two between Edward Gaming and Fnatic for that spot in the semifinal. More World 2015 coming your way right after this.
I was trying to look where to go, we did it also. Couldn't find.
Onto the tunnel from behind. Huni throws down the Damascus damage. The Dragon Strike and its first blood to Featherfin. Pawn's in so much trouble. Yellowstar needs to hit his combo. Flashes for the knock-up hit, but Pawn backwards. Findo saves him. And EDG decimate Fnatic.
Jeff and back. Base. JCQ. Good job, really good job.
And he's shut down by Def. This could be the team fight that turns it around. 2 members of Fnatic are down for only clear-out from EDG. The knockup finds 2. The dunk finds 4. And the Maelstrom melts Edward Gaming. Fnatic are 1 step closer to a semi-final spot.
Welcome back to the 2015 World Championship quarterfinals, where Fnatic is up 1-0 over EDG after that explosive first game. And here they are headed back to the stage, getting ready for Game 2. But of course, before we get into Game 2, we have an issue on which we need to apologize. Last week during an Ask the Desk segment, we got a question from Je suis Pepe Le Pew, who asked how to deal with double or even triple TP comps. And we were a little dismissive of the prospect of a triple TP comp, and lo and behold, it has come to pass that one exists. So first off, I sincerely apologize on behalf of my analysts for being so dismissive of that. Secondly, there was a pretty fabulous example from Fnatic of how exactly to deal with a triple TP comp or even a 4 global comp in this game.
I think you just pulled that tweet back up just to say his name again. But anyway, when this tweet did come up, my response was hard engage. You come in there with hard engage, but what Fnatic does here is not only do they have hard engage, they cover the TP zones. The gravity field will come down on a TP area, and they also have Reckless's ultimate on a TP here. Look at that gravity field come down. Coral says, nope, I'm not coming in there, stops the TP, and then it becomes this centered fight for Fnatic where they are grouped up and the TPs are not. And when you have this many TPs on members, you're actually losing in-combat summoner spells. You're lacking 3 of them when you could have more power in these team fights. And when you look at EDG's types of statistics, they are actually #1 in assists per kill of quarterfinal teams, which is indicative of team fighting, which is their tendency to want to do that. When you don't have those summoner spells, you're weaker in these fights.
All right, well, moving on to Game 2, but keeping in mind all the craziness of Game 1, both in the champion picks that we saw, as well as the back and forth explosive nature of that game. What are we looking for in terms of changes, adjustments that these teams are going to make coming into Game 2? Imad.
It is like, I'm looking at EDG for starters. Like, they had this strategy, like, it's like this business plan, this joke that is going around. Like, they do something the early game, then there's a question mark, and then there's profit. You know, the question mark, I thought, okay, maybe they're going to cope with the Jace, which is hard against the Jarvan. Maybe they will split push with this triple TP going on, which is also hard against Jarvan with Jace later on. And that is where I find the flaw. They had this idea of an early game where Clearlove just manhandled Reignover, which worked, and they came out ahead. But later on, what were they supposed to do? I don't see it. It would have been just so much simpler with a Tristana that had some disengage going on, you know? That's what I can see, like the question mark getting filled in.
I completely agree with the sentiment behind what you're saying. And first of all, if we change nothing and just get 3 to 5 games of exactly that, like, I'm the happiest man in the world. That was so fun to watch.
But that would mean EDG loses.
I don't.
5 games.
That's fine. That's fine. But to your point, I actually think that we saw in the top lane team fight exactly what EDG wanted. What they wanted was to create some like chaos and then force decisions. We keep talking about this. And if they had actually just sent Thresh after the Victor, after they won that top lane team fight, they had 2 teleports available. I actually feel that they forced the decision. They sieged top lane turret. That was a wrong decision out of Fnatic. They needed to wait for the creep waves. Bottom lane had been set up for a slow push. Jace had a Trinity Force at that stage for no other reason apart from backdooring. And there was a Fiora that completely wrecks turrets. They honestly could have nearly stolen a win there after what turned out to be a very decisive victory for Fnatic after about the 19-minute mark.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a play that you have to go back and look at, because there was an opportunity for EDG to just flat out end the game after it, and they did not do that, and that might keep them up a little bit at night. They have to shake that off, get refocused. They have to use that TP on Deft.
One thing I
have to keep us moving forward. So is that the final thing you have?
Yeah, you have to use it if you're going to bring it. Use it effectively.
All right, well, it's time to get back on the Rift. As we step back inside the venue, EDD's jungler explains Fnatic shouldn't expect to face the same Clearlove they saw compete in the group stage.
在 S5的小组赛里面嘛，就是我觉得我自己的表现很一般，就是没有什么特别出彩的地方，也没有说打得很不好的地方，我感觉表现得很一般吧。就也有我自己生病的原因在里面，所以说8强的时候我会表现出来一个另外不一样的我，会表现出，会拿出更多的英雄，然后会打出开预期的表现。
Let's take a look at those champions. We're going to see who was the Gragas for Game 1. EDG are now on the blue side against Fnatic, meaning the onus on banning out Mordekaiser and Gangplank lies on the side of Fnatic. They took out the Tom Kindle on blue.
Покажет разные стороны своей личности, покажет разные пики. И первый пик его был Грагасом. Вряд ли кого-то Грагас может удивить. Ну и смотрим.
because of what Reckless is able to do in these team fights. First ban for
Элиза, Кеннон, Лулу и Мордекай. О, Мордекайзер Ганпланк.
Alright, so they're gonna forego one of the two bans, maybe both of them here. The thing is, the reason why we haven't seen up until this point teams give away
Посмотрим, кого оставит, нет кого-нибудь Fnatic. Или оставят обоих, потому что если они оставят обоих, одного они смогут забрать. Да.
Scobie just said right here.
I would take Gangplank.
Gangplank is the normal first pick.
Wow.
However,
однако берут Мордекайзера первым, то есть не Ганпланка. Немного удивительно, потому что Ганпланк все-таки рейнджовый. В лете он благодаря своим бочкам очень даже рейнджовый персонаж. Поэтому не знаю, разменивать Мордекайзера. Ну, это, конечно, 6 на 5. 6 на 5 в тимфайтах благодаря дракону. Но как-то страшно. И в этой игре либо Мордекайзер, либо Ганпланку испортят статистику. То есть у обоих этих персонажный винрейт.
But I think also EDG, one of the reasons they take Mordekaiser,
процентный винрейт.
he's going to be more than happy taking it if he wants to play that very aggressive style, will try and push in the bottom lane, get these tower dives going. But I think also EDG, one of the reasons they take Mordekaiser is that their strategy last game of camping top lane didn't pay off.
Yeah.
Okay, it was good in the start, but didn't
Рейнджховер берет себе Грагаса, что очень хорошо.
Around the bottom lane. And this pick from Reckless is a very good pick into Mordekaiser when it comes to killing him in the lane.
Exactly. We've been talking to a lot of the AD carries here pretty much all worlds long about Mordekaiser and what would you like to play into him. Nobody has an answer that they would love to play against Mordekaiser, but if you have to, Vayne and Kalista, top two answers so far. Obviously,
and
because Vayne can't go for that solo kill.
On a hyper carry for the first time at the World Championship.
We're seeing so many different strategies coming in for both teams. Just looking at game one of EDG, changing that focus to top side of the map, not something we have seen from them in the World Championship so far.
Не, ну нужен высокий берстовый урон команде Edward Gaming. Брать Касадина я бы не стал. То есть, если будет такой пик, очень вероятно, что Edward Gaming проиграет. Потому что очень мало контроля. Есть ульта у Ганпланка. У него замедление. Куча контроля у Грагаса, куча контроля у Браума. Реклс уничтожает просто всех. Влет, ну, очень Мальфит хорошо пойдет. Так, а нам нужен сейчас мидер. А зачем что-то изобретать? Виктор активен. Ну и Азир, конечно же. То есть можно спокойненько оттолкнуть Мордекайзера и уничтожить. Ну, как я и сказал, Азир. Напрашивающийся пик.
I think Castellan is doing really well against a lot of these control mages.
Yeah, he can hop right over.
He can hop over it, he can sit early on and just try and kind of farm and sustain.
Но я не вижу, как будет Edward Gaming работать в этой ситуации. Судя по всему, они решили слить.
It's so difficult when you give away Mordekaiser because it means you can't ignore these dragons. You can't ignore bottom side. EDG are obviously going to focus very heavily on that bottom side, try and get Mordekaiser ahead. and then that transitions very easily into taking dragons. And once
как смогут использовать Мордекайзера в гейминг.
Global gold for just shoving down turrets. Outer turrets are very easy to take over.
We're seeing basic Fnatic saying we don't need to shut you down in the laning phase. We want a super strong team fight against you. Azir can push him away. Again, he needs to get close with the 3 hits on his Q. You have the Gangplank who's fantastic against Mordekaiser in lane, or in team fights because of that massive zone he can create.
Yeah, the other thing is I really like the combination of Gangplank and Vayne, because Gangplank can add the ultimate, allow Vayne to take her target down. So if someone overextends in the lane, especially Mordekaiser,
gentlemen,
take him out.
Fnatic have gone for the team composition. Gangplank undefeated at Worlds. Mordekaiser undefeated at Worlds.
There can be only one!
There can be only one undefeated champion after this game. You need to let us know which it will be. It is game 2 of Fnatic versus EDG. And for the first time in 17 games, we see Mordekaiser and GP on the Rift.
And we see EDG again run a composition with very low wave clear. Not from the last game, but we've seen in group stages, we've seen it back in the LPL. Look at their lineup right here. Who's going to clear the waves as they fall behind?
The thing is, they're not playing. Yes,
they're not playing to
of
fall
course
behind.
you never. Okay, I stopped myself. You're never planning on falling behind. But this is a team that relies so heavily on snowballing that if you fall behind anyway, then there's not even that much point in having wave clear, because you're probably not going to come back anyway. So you all in on this strategy. You have the early game. You're going to try and snowball. You're going to try and get that Mordekaiser control. Fnatic, though, they're going to go in and get those deep wards down for the lanes.
EDG got that lead in game 1. And if it wasn't for 3 Baron power plays that netted Fnatic plus 15,000 gold, they may not have come back into that game.
I feel like that was EDG trying to adapt to, to this new world meta that they've seen and that they've experienced, playing against Origin and seeing all these teleports. That is something that experience is crucial in, and they were unable to come up in the mid and late game calls and try and make that work out.
My question is just, did you have to fully commit to this style of we cannot fall behind no matter what because we have 0 wave clear? That Kassadin could have been a more safe choice, like a Victor, offering some wave clear by still having super strong side lanes with Fiora and the Mordekaiser.
Well, fully committing to the zone tween turret farming. Call it. Mid-rift.
Mid-rift. Gonna get themselves the wave. Cora's gonna be holding hands with Clear Love. As EDG's minion wave gets to
Gaming у нас решили устроить фаст-пуш.
To pushing that top lane. So let's see how much damage Mako and Def can put down. Def running with Flash Heal as opposed to Flash Exhaust that we've seen a couple other times from Walls.
So now, Fnatic knows that EDG started on the top side, also on Def's loop of on the bottom lane, which means February needs to be very careful how he's standing in lane. He needs to always lean towards the top side of the map because he's going to push the wave over and over and over in these swaps, and he cannot get roamed on by Clearlove and Mako and die.
Yeah, and I'd actually expect Yellowstar to actually help out in this jungling, not doing a whole lot there, sitting in lane with Reckless, just kind of splitting experience there. It's fine for champions to split experience with Mordekaiser, because Mordekaiser will last hit the minions and gain the full experience. But Vayne definitely wants to have the solo lane to be able to try and keep up with him.
Obviously, EDG investing into the fast push, the one we've seen a lot, all European lanes have now become the meta.
Western.
The Western, fair enough. You get that one as well. But for Fnatic, if you have a Vayne, normally you prefer longer lane swaps, so you can sit and farm, get some solo experience, you want to farm up to get your cutlass or at least some lifesteal. The quick push is not always the greatest for you, but you do benefit from having 800 gold because you get that one lifesteal item compared to an average player on a standard 80 carry. Mordekaiser though is probably going to build towards the Wild Eyes as his first item, not getting any gold, giving everything over to Koro. Another change.
Yep, they gave the freeze, they gave the full tower gold to him.
Команды разменяются быстренько вышками. И надо будет еще много и много времени, прежде чем Мордекайзер сможет стать чем-нибудь страшным.
take a much worse trade.
Because EDG got the early swap though, because they got the 20 seconds advantage, this is going to mean a pretty decent freeze down there for Koro. Looks like Reckless is going to go try and answer it though, try and break it as quickly as possible.
So Koro knows that Fnatic is going to send that bottom lane down here, so that's why he can't stay for very long. What some top laners like to do is just push as many minions as possible right here, knowing he's going to get zoned away now anyway. Because what Fnatic can do now is they can threaten a tower dive on Koro. Once this massive wave hits the bottom lane tower, Huni can teleport down and 4v1 dive him, give another tower over to Huni.
Ну, сейчас, судя по всему, таки будет дайв в исполнении Фнатиков.
Yeah, but Huni is ready for this one. Look how far back he's on the map.
Koro is actually
now is running,
taking his time getting out.
Fnatic had a small opening.
Однако Koro все-таки смог сбежать.
Reading the situation, they don't want to risk getting killed on their own turret, and don't want to be greedy for these massive minion waves here.
He's managing to stay alive. He's grabbed himself an early Avarice Blade. You can see Deftamako pushing up in the top lane, and the big stack for Fnatic pushing down bottom.
So this right here is actually why I prefer the top laner to stay in lane a little bit longer before he recalls at first. So he can push a few minions and then go back to base because he's gonna get zoned anyway. He's doing nothing right now other than try and get some experience from his minions, so he's gonna be forced away. Had he stayed when the tower died, pushed in the wave, or at least looked at where Fnatic was setting Huni, once he knew he was gonna be in top side, push in the wave, then recall, you get more gold, you get more experience.
Yeah, exactly.
Now he's kind of denied himself a little bit, but Huni is obviously the same situation.
Yeah, and it does mean a lot to lane swap and deny Gangplank because Gangplank's gold income is very snowballing because of the Q and because of the extra gold that you accumulate enables you to earn gold quicker, keeping him off that Trinity Force for as long as possible. He's definitely very important for EDG, so they've stunted his growth a bit. Trying to keep up though with the early Avarice buy.
Yeah, and difference here from the teams. EDG didn't manage to bounce the top wave after they killed tower, so that is slowly, very, very slowly pushing down towards Huni, and he can stay in the lane and get experience. Bottom side is very heavily pushing towards Reckless on his side, so the Mordekaiser now needs to
up top they're actually making a move on Huni, as you mentioned it. There are wards only for EDG
Так, ну и Хуни готовится
умирать. He does not manage to flash away. He's going to get the movement speed buff. They get a little bit more burst from his passive, and here is Yellow Star.
Ну, наконец-то.
Is not going to be used just yet, and Yellow Star's in trouble. He's now in full retreat.
Для Эдвард Гейминг в этот раз они забирают, потратив все флеши, которые у них есть. И Фиора сейчас под ударом. Ну и это вполне предсказуемо, потому что гнобить надо Ганпланка до того момента, как он станет сильным и страшным. Ну и ждут Эдвард Гейминг, когда же уже можно взять первого дракона. Хотя немного опасно, конечно. Но нет, Рейнджхойер уходит на красную половину. И сейчас будет дракон. И продавят Азира, потому что у Азира ХП вообще нету. Заберут у него синий баф.
Look at the top lane, Reckless and Yellow Star, they're going to be dancing with Koro. Teleport comes out for Feberbit. In actual fact, Reckless and Yellow, they play it safe. They back themselves out. TP, I think the threat was enough to thwart at least Deft's presence.
Ну и дракон спокойненько точит. Ну и немного... Не надо таких предположений. Типа убили дракона, получили дракон баф.
Themselves up in this middle lane. Warner's moved down to the bottom. Makings of that Rod of Ages. There's a teleport available, as does Koro, as does Huni. So the only TP down is Bebevin from his previous defense.
Huni's still behind in experience because he died up there. Fnatic tried to leave him in lane to get as much farm before recalling with him.
Ну, не знаю, я не скажу, что сильно позади у нас Хуни по опыту, потому что по фарму он столько же, сколько и у Фиоры. У Фиоры просто есть килл. Единственный в этой игре на данный момент. Так, и полн поменялся.
Go for the Nashos, of course, for his item on his Azir, and he needs to defend this tower, because once that breaks, that opens up for EDG to start getting into the jungle of Fnatic very easily. They could do it already now, but at least Fnatic will spot them with some defensive wards. It just makes it a bit easier for EDG once the tower drops. Next dragon might be the go-to signal, because again, the siege without a dragon for EDG is horrible. It's all melee champions. I mean, they have to walk straight into the tower without hitting it. That's not going to work.
Well, all the siege being horrible hasn't stopped other Mordekaiser teams from picking up victories.
As long as you get the dragon.
It's the key, the crux of it.
Как Эдвард Гейминг потом будут пытаться убивать Азира в лейте, когда он поставит свою стенку, и что? Что вы ему сделаете? А по голде, я думаю, он уже опережает Фиору, причем довольно заметно должен опережать. Во-первых, у него итем на голду. Ну и про пассивку не забываем.
Yeah, the ward placement pretty much tells everything of where they want to work off of here. Double pink wards up on top for Deft. EDG going to clear one
которая дает ему случайное количество золота.
Reckless versus Deft. Bane into Mordekaiser right now. Braum Bane definitely.
И Карл хорошо прохорашивает Хуни, в принципе.
So exciting. Oh, a little bit of the taunt there from Koro. What's so exciting about this Deft v Reckless matchup that is setting up is our second game in a row, two completely different AD carries.
Так, наконец-то у нас Мордекайзер приближается. Приближается к тому, чтобы собрать релай. И после этого будет уже интереснее смотреть на Мордекайзера.
Return to Fnatic and now have Rooney in the top lane, and the whole game plan is different.
Yeah, EDG really playing their game plan very well here, though. They've kept up the pressure on all the side lanes. They're trying to close the noose here now on mid lane. It's up to Fnatic to put down defensive wards, because a lot of the movement is going to be between Fnatic jungle, between the lanes here. And EDG are passing through wards ever so slightly here, so Fnatic can see and make the proper adjustments to defend.
Only thing I would like to see from EDG was just put more pressure on this mid tower and threaten a dive against February. Force him to always take a very fast step back so he can't start instant clearing the waves, because that's what stops EDG from getting damage on the tower. Whenever Vayne is sitting in the side lane, she's not doing anything. She's stuck there. She's going to sit there forever and do nothing else than farm. So you have a numbers advantage in the mid lane. Go and put all that pressure on February and force him away to take that mid tower.
You have to, while Mordekaiser is good at pulling off tower dives, you have to be so careful thinking about the displacement that Fnatic have. The Azir ultimate, the Gragas ultimate, and Gangplank global. That is really, really difficult to pull off.
Good vision though.
And that vision may allow EDG the pressure. Oh, that's a Fisher you've been talking about. Putting some threat on this tower. 30 seconds until the dragon spawns.
And look at the difference here. How far back February has to stand before he can start clearing the wave. Just by EDG sending 3 guys into the mid lane. He runs all the way back behind his tower. They get a little bit of damage, a little bit of poke onto him, and they keep the pressure going, because you can see everything with these deep wards. EDG is a team, once they get the map control, they can take over the entire map and then keep it, because they have so much deep vision.
Wants to, and I'd even go further and say they have to, because remember how hard they've committed to this style. 7 seconds left on the Dragon coming up. I think that they've done enough to secure this one. That vision you're talking about should enable them to take it fairly freely. And the turret in middle being so low, this might be the last thing to knock it over.
This is all they were waiting for. Chip away in mid tower, keep a bit of pressure on it, take that Dragon,
Так, ну и очередной дракон для Edward Gaming. Судя по всему, они от драконов в пресете собираются. Потому что больше я не вижу для них возможностей.
Well, Unbreakable will block those Dragon auto attacks, and the Dragon is getting chunked. Death sentence finds Reckless, but there's no follow-up, and the Dragon should drop shortly. Hold up there as Koro is challenging to duel. Flash away from Huni. Flash forward for Koro.
Нет, все-таки Хуни выживает. По одной точке не попал. Кол, иначе смог бы, конечно, убить Хуни. Ну и да, странное использование дракона от Edward Gaming, потому что, ну, забрали мид дракона, очень хорошо, у них преимущество 6 в 5. Они просто послали своего 6-го члена команды на вышку, и Браун поставил щит, и все. И урона он нанес, ни вышки, ничего.
Reckless is back pocket, getting closer to that blade of the Rune King. Huni as well. GP asks the one question, do I have Kinetic Force?
I'm so excited for the first team fight, by the way, between these two. I want to see if Deft is going to be able to pull off Flash
Что-то странное происходит.
To actually be effective, because it looks fairly difficult. Let's go over the zone control. I talked about that being the #1 thing against Mordekaiser. It's ridiculous. Gangplank, 2 forms. Gragas, 2 forms. Azir, 2 forms. Braum, 2 forms as well. So it's going to be so hard for Def to navigate, and we'll see if he actually can separate himself from a run-of-the-mill Mordekaiser, or if he is an expert.
The last time we saw this exact matchup was Wild Turtle against Imp. And Imp walked into the third bomb, disrespecting the melee range. So Reckless needs to be a lot more wary, knowing how Reckless has played team fights recently.
Yeah.
The theory should be the theory.
I say, I'm looking for Mordekaiser to differentiate himself. However, it is a lot due to the team. The team's got to set him up. Mako on the Thresh. Sure. We keep highlighting Thresh, how important it is for playmaking for these guys. Mako, a lot of weight on his shoulders to come up big.
And he's not been doing a whole lot in this game, even though he's had full control of the Fnatic jungle for such a long time. We haven't really seen him commit to anything. Showed up mid once, and that was about it. But also with this Mordekaiser, it's not like his damage late game is terrible. He can still really destroy you. It's just getting to these targets that's so difficult. EDG will have, instead, there's so many members with a lot of mobility, like the Cassidy, like the Aura, that can get onto the background of Fnatic. But the Vayne can kite and feel a lot for herself. So it's going to be so difficult for EDG in these big team fights, unless they can get a big tower advantage, and they're not doing it because February is just sitting here wave playing and they're doing nothing to put pressure on the wave.
And that slower pace of game is so different from the previous match. By about this point last game, it was 11 kills.
Очень медленная игра.
Admittedly, EDG have got 2 dragons already, which by this point last game
скучно такие игры, конечно, смотреть.
Definitely prioritizing that aspect, but
Деритесь уже, делайте что-нибудь.
And it's funny, this time around, it's Fnatic who
need
to have a lot more precision in their execution to be able to pull this one off. Yes, they have a lot of tools to make this happen, but if you miss one of those very important abilities,
miss a barrel and a big fight,
and then you get a bonk in the face.
Cannot happen for Fnatic, but for now, they have been able to just keep it somewhat close in gold due to the fact that EDG are always waiting for dragons to respawn. They want to play that 5-dragon game as well at the same time.
I'm quite sure people think that's annoying to call up but that's Mace of Spades. I'll stop that from now on. You'll know why when you hear the noise, though.
A minute and a half till the next dragon. Yellowstar was very brave and cleared out that pink ward near the mid lane river a minute or 2 ago. And there is a ward just behind that dragon pit for Fnatic with teleports available. So let's see if Fnatic decide dragon number 3 is the one they want to contest, and not give away that movement speed buff. Another half-hearted attempt to push that middle tower.
That is feeding him farm.
Well, yeah. Another reason why we're seeing so much trepidation here is because these teams are not used to getting these champions. I mean, you don't play very many games where you actually do have Mordekaiser and Gangplank in there. And EDG actually, the slower pace here is working fairly heavily against him.
I want to see where Mooney upgrades his cannon barrage. I think he's got enough serpents for at least level 1, and also whether or not he's learned to play around those barrel mechanics slightly more effectively. It is fire at will at level 1. Something that is not what he did last time. Death's Daughter was the preferred 5-15 upgrade.
So it depends on what you want to do with the Gangplank. Death's Daughter is better for the one-on-one, the instant damage on one target. Fight was better for the big team fight instead, where you can hit multiple times and use it as a zone.
Yeah, exactly. And since the name of the game here for Fnatic is to control the battlefield,
судя по всему, Fnatic третьего дракона все-таки будут контестить, что-то пытаться противопоставить Advanced Gaming. И смотрите, Рексай фармит големов, как там они не спешит на дракона.
And for it to really spark with a hook landing. I mean, Pawn and Deft go all in on somebody. You want to focus whoever one target as quickly as possible. It doesn't even really matter who it is. You can burn one person down and get the ghost. You actually get the 6 versus 4 that people often complain about. That's where everything turns for EDG, trying to burst that person down, grab the ghost.
Looking at what Fnatic is doing around the dragon, look at their defensive pick wards, because they know there's a double teleport with 2 assassins basically that can flank and instantly kill your AD carry or your Azir in the back. So they have very, very defensive pings to stop that from flank from happening. And now the trick for Fnatic is to keep pushing mid lane. Honestly, if you keep pushing mid down to this tower, the melee champion will be spotted sitting under that tower, and you can have full vision of where ADG is going on the map, and they cannot flank due to these defensive pink wards.
I also must say, an important thing for Fnatic is not to all blow their ultimates at the same time. As soon as EDG initiate, they have to be careful. Because Fnatic have so many tools, they have to be careful not to overlap all of them.
But it is a good setup for now for Fnatic. EDG obviously is going to look to try and challenge it, get in there, see if they can get some deep wards behind Fnatic, so you have that flanking option with double teleport. And it's always a fun little pre-fight over vision and control of the map before the dragon starts.
Honestly, the reason that we put so much pressure on the early game and the snowballing and the team comp that EDG have put together here, the slow pace of the game into 21 minutes here is actually fairly good for Fnatic. Huni's been even able to farm up in the top side, sort of freezing there to the Trinity Force. And does have the high impact barrels now. So that's another reason why vision around Dragon is going to be so important. If you can set up barrels in the brush, then you get the chain reactions that really turn a team fight. And you mentioned Trevor, this EDG being very melee heavy. One barrel can take out the whole squad.
Now, whether or not Huni can make that land, I've heard from production that there is a keyboard-related issue with Rainover, the Q key actually specifically. So we're getting that resolved.
Very important.
Getting that resolved right now, and then of course we will get back into this. So we've mentioned the zone control excessively. The setup is in place. You can see the goal difference between the respective lanes, or really lack thereof. This is a very even, very static game that could be broken wide open by this very next team fight.
Yeah, and because Fnatic has been able to defend that mid tower, even though there's been 2 dragons for EDG already, and just Fibman sitting and wave playing for most of the time, except for that second dragon where the rest of the team came in. EDG again has just been farming. They do have a team though that does really well with 1 or 2 items, like the Kassadin. Often the big spike framers get 2 items, get the fully stacked Rod of Ages, and you start having enough power to really assassinate someone. Mordekaiser as well, once that Rylai is coming in. So it's not all terrible for EDG getting these big items, but they cannot now afford to lose a fight, because then the game simply just runs away from them.
Now, game running away, EDG have got great scaling in their Kassadin and Fiora, questionable in Mordekaiser because it's so dependent on finding that third Mace of Spades. I quite like the tools that Fnatic have going forward, but it then relies entirely on the communication.
Yeah, execution.
And not messing up, right? Yeah. I've just heard from our stats guy that Reckless has currently dealt, I think, 374 damage to champions. So, Devisha, you talked about him farming those side lanes. 153 CS, Blade of the Rune King picked up, and sitting on 1,200 gold. who is making his way towards his second item. But at what point does he become powerful enough to actually deal with Deft, who's got the Hextech Revolver and Lilacs?
Well, we hopefully should never see a Reckless alone versus Deft situation. Fnatic is going to do this as a team, but when it comes to his damage, I mean, we know the scaling of a Vayne, Blade of the Rune King is the first important one, where he can start handling himself. And if a big team fight happens now, he can't do decent damage if he gets to sit in auto tank.
Also, I have to say, the thing you need to keep track of is levels. Don't forget about the passive here from Mordekaiser. He's got 2 levels up on Reckless. Yes, the items are going to be fairly similar with the amount of gold he's been able to collect as he goes back to purchase next, but the extra levels there for Deft, definitely adding a lot of stats.
And we can also see EDG later on in the game start using the fact you have Cassidy and Fiora, both of them with teleport. They are in the side lanes. You can even set them in the same lane and go 2-1 against Uni. Like, jump in, you have the mobility to do it. Because Featherman is the wave player with the teleport. He's the guy sitting mid lane for Fnatic all the time. So he cannot respond to the side lane pressure of double TP. There's a lot of ways EDG can play that out, either split push the whole thing or jump up to each other.
Just to explain to the guys in-house, the players did unpause the game to test whether or not Rainover could cast Q. For obvious reasons, the test did fail, I'm afraid. So the guys are busy triaging the problem. We need to get that spell once again resolved. We will continue to troubleshoot that. We've broken down some of the mechanics here. Individual plays, the team fights. Where do these teams now sit in terms of communication, right? Because this Dragon fight is impending. Fnatic actually backed away. Just before the pause came in, they set up, they siege middle, they peeled back. Deficia, you've touched on the defensive wards, and Fnatic are now on their line of defensive wards.
They've had a good 10 minutes to set up how they want to execute this next team fight. So both teams should be very ready. It looks like, EDG have moved in. They have to clear out some Fnatic vision before they set themselves up, though.
And that is the key thing for EDG and why they're moving back in. February needs to keep pushing mid over and over and over. But you also have to be careful when it comes to recalling close to a dragon. If you do sit on 1,1600 gold, you really want to go back to base. You want to spend it all, but you can't because Innocent Dragon is going to be started then, and that's what's going to cost it. Fnatic, if they give up another dragon to EDG, not only is it going to be 3 dragons for 0, that dragon should matter when it comes to taking down that mid tower.
So let's talk dragon mechanics. 1 and 2 were not good. We've seen Mordekaiser 4 other times at the tournament.
Right.
Martin, you are the dragon aficionado.
Freak.
No, you were real excited about it the last time.
So I used to hate that dragon. But now I'm starting to love it a little bit more. Just a little bit. But I think the way Deft is playing with it is really wrong. Because what he's doing all the time is he's going in, he sends it straight into the tower with no minions. And Fnatic just sits there, hits it, and just kills it. And because it's 3 melee champions, or even 5 maybe, 4 of them, sorry, Thresh can hit from range. EDG can't follow. The dragon is not enough for them to go in and hit the tower. So they just send it in and kill it. They don't use the minion waves at all, and that's a big mistake.
The question is, are they going to let him retake this test? Is it graded on a curve? Come on. They need some help. Looks like we're going to have to send it over to the analyst desk, though.
That we are. Unfortunately, guys, we will head to the analyst desk. I'll keep you entertained and informed when we resolve the problem.
We will. Thank you very much, Quick Shot. There is seemingly an issue with Rainover's Q on Gragas. Now, there is the proposed situation, which there's a known bug with Gragas where you can't use your Q until you die. So right now we have officials discussing what will happen, whether or not it is an issue with the keyboard or the game itself. In the meantime, gives us some time to discuss. A drastically different strategy here by EDG with abandoning the triple TP. They still have the Fiora on the top lane, but a Kassadin, a Mordekaiser, and a very interesting, and that was all initiated by Fnatic, leaving Mordekaiser and GP up in the picks and ban space.
And that's really brave, because one thing that we learnt about EDG in the finals, actually, is that Pawn's Pirate is, like, really good. Like, his gangplank is really feared in the LPL, and he was playing at mid lane a lot and was getting really good success rates with it, like farming up an absolute monster. And because Clearlove is more of a go into the enemy jungle, Pawn would, like, clear mid wave, go to Wolves, clear mid wave, go to Wraith. He was getting, like, 70 CS.
An homage to the French crowd with the wave. Nice to see the audience taking it all with a grain of salt and keeping a good attitude. as we are in the pause. Continue your point, though.
Yeah, so I was really surprised they went with Mordekaiser, and what surprised me even further is how slowly they've played this game. Like, they are slow playing, and all melee comp against Azir. This is very dangerous.
Yeah, sure. They have a lot of scaling, though, right? You have Mordekaiser who does a lot of damage, because you have Kassadin, who will be a large backline threat to the Azir and the Vayne later on. And these are all squishies, right? Everybody that you go after on the side of Fnatic is going to be a prime target for Kassadin. They don't have a lot of wave clear here. You're kind of relying on the Mordekaiser. It might turn out to be a problem for him, but they can just stall out for 5 dragons. That's really the win condition here from EDG, is get skirmishes when you're hitting power spikes and get your dragons, and then at that point, Fnatic won't have a response.
It's like the first thought that comes to mind is obviously you pick 4 melee champions into this composition that just loves situations when you run into them. You have Vayne, Azir, Gangplank. Obviously, on paper it looks bad, but what we need to highlight is the fact that EDG have stronger matchups everywhere, on bottom, on mid, on top, and of course the Drake situation that we spoke about, but I feel they need to pick up the pace. They're playing way too slow, and I feel like Fnatic eventually is going to be in a position where they are stronger than them in a team fight.
And there's one strategy that was really popular in the LPL that I feel we have to talk about just because of the Mordekaiser, and like you used to see it in like Season 1, and that is Kassadin has, with Athene's, has a mana reset on his W and Athene's. So he sits in the brush and just spams his ultimate, right, until he like has all these stacks. Def flash ults the Vayne. Horn just runs out of the brush and one-shots a Vayne, and then they win the team fight off that. It's very, very cheesy, and you used to see it a lot with DFG Mordekaisers. I know you're a big fan of it, but if you're able to get that AD carry, things like Baron, things like turrets actually become really easy to take. So we'll see if they're able to execute on a team fight, because I feel like unless they get like the dream play, the kite back is so good on Fnatic's lineup right now.
Yeah, that's the thing, is as soon as a Rylai's Crystal Scepter comes out for Febivin, you're not really going to be able to get to him as a Mordekaiser. If he's playing it perfectly, you're never going to even get close. You're going to blow your flash. Still, Febivin has ways to disengage you. So it's just that one key moment that Deft is looking for where he gets to bop a primary target. Like I said before, nobody's really tanky here. Like, even if you hit the Gangplank, you might just one-shot him. You might one-shot the Azir or the Vayne. So all of these people are very easy to take down if the Mordekaiser closes the gap. That's just the question that we have to pick up, but can he do it?
Well, so the theme here seems to be time, right? It's about how much time does EDG have to close out this game, or rather to get to that 5-dragon mark without Fnatic getting to a point where they can wave clear efficiently, or even then turn the tides and siege themselves onto EDG.
And I feel like there's actually a really cool strat that EDG can use here. It's now like 23 minutes into the game. Like, it's time for the Dragon versus Baron showdown. Just go get the next Dragon, march it through mid lane, like completely show your hand, right? Make it the most obvious Baron in the world. Tank Baron up with a Dragon and just make Fnatic come to you, because if they don't make a move within like the next 5 minutes, we will get to that point of the game.
It's just like, with this play in mind, I feel it's like the composition that Fnatic has drafted. It's also like with the GP ult and the Azir going over the wall. I can imagine it's very hard for EDG to do the Baron, because they don't have like the quickest.
Oh, they shouldn't commit to it. Like after Fnatic comes to you, get the heck out of the
forcing the fight. That I like it too. I like that. Forcing the fight. That's something they need to do. Because something that I want to talk about as well is like the Kassadin, because I've been hyping Kassadin all the time. We saw it yesterday as well, but Faker kind of died a lot of times in lane, sure, but I don't think that's relevant to my Kassadin point. I really like the confidence.
I love that you called yourself out on it, so it's great.
But then he deflected it for himself. That's not relevant.
Come on. Kassadin, of course. I like the fact that Pawn is brave enough to blind pick it against a player like Fabivin, because Fabivin has been criticized for a small champion pool. In this tournament, it hasn't been noticed because how the bans are structured. Nobody's targeting the Victor bans, the other bans. But Kassadin is really good against all those champions, like against the Victor, against the Azir. And the buff on Kassadin was immense. So he can start doing exactly as you said, just charging up in the bush and just one-shotting people.
And Pawn's 15-0 LPL.
Yeah, the funny thing too is you can also do that in the fountain with home guard and TP. And then you have full mana for
We are so cheesy. We are the cheesiest.
That's the thing is Pawn strikes me as a cheeser.
Range 5s, here we come. We're going to play Mordekaiser with a home guard TP Kassadin, one-shot.
I'll zillion you, like, you'll be flying, man.
Oh my god. I do want to talk, though, because we had a rather lively discussion about how exactly Kassadin fits into this composition. Because EDG has locked themselves into a 5 melee comp, it is making it very hard for them to siege. Would it not have been beneficial for them to, say, for example, pick up the Azir, which was the discussion we're having, in place of the Kassadin, if only to enable a little bit more siege?
it would have allowed them to take turrets. It would have been a different direction to kind of take the composition, because otherwise this is more, we can have these spread out skirmishes instead of team fights, right? Like they have the split push going for them, right? Koro has priority in the top lane over Huni at the moment, and he's continuing to just get little chunks off of turrets, and it's hard to get some pressure there. But then if you start a skirmish on the other side of the map, you're in a good spot. So Azir would have been a completely different take, and there's more counter picks to it that you can run into it, because it would have been blind.
Yeah, and as I was going to say in the pregame, there's kind of this arrogance about LPL teams, and that is the fact that if they're even or ahead, they feel they're a better team, and then they shrug off victories like defeats like it's nothing. It's really weird when you watch them play, and EDG would have been like, we have a one-shot comp. We're not going to diversify. We're not going to do anything. They're very tunnel-minded on how they want to play the game. And, you know, it's good because it makes these bloody games and they, like, run at each other a lot, but it also does have very significant weaknesses, like LGD's stubbornness of not banning Mod. I would say that's, once again, they would be like, we've played it in scrims, we're better than Mordekaiser, we're just going to leave it up. And they got completely crushed by it 2 games in a row. Like, EDG, to me, have kind of done a similar thing here, where they're just, like, confident in their own gameplay, and it's probably going to bite them if the game goes for another 10 minutes.
Yeah, for sure. I want to, like, speak a bit more about the Azir in particular, because sure, it might not fit into EDG's idea. It's just the fact that it's just so hard for them to play their composition against Azir.
Yeah.
We see them struggle, sieging in the mid simply because Azir can stand there and just relax, kill the mini wave, and also peel for the Vayne.
I just want to throw out an update. We're still troubleshooting the issue on stage. No ETA as of yet, but we'll keep you informed as it comes. Again, gentlemen, so to your point about, you know, basically it would have created 2 different style of compositions. It kind of ties in with what you were saying in the pregame, which is that EDG is a team that is going to force you into decisions. Yeah. We're going to force you to make a decision about how we're dealing with dragons, because we're going to get to 5 unless you proactively stop us.
And the crazy thing is that Fnatic's Game 1 comp was a very, like, all-in, like, 5 people stacked on top of each other comp, which EDG are normally comfortable playing in, and they didn't pick that kind of comp. So this time, EDG went, well, we're going to pick an all-in, like, stand on top of each other 5-man comp, and Fnatic's done the opposite and said, we're going to play the disengage kind of pokey comp. So, like, they've actually completely swapped roles in this series so far. Shows the diversity of both teams, and the fact that they can both execute it up to a 23-minute mark is, once again, just fantastic League of Legends.
It's completely different than their tendencies as well throughout this entire tournament. Like I said previously, EDG has the most assists per kill, which is indicative of a team fight team. They're running skirmishes. And then the exact opposite is Fnatic. Their second least assists per kill out of all teams in the tournament. The only one that's ahead of them is AHQ. Right? So this is Fnatic, who usually runs skirmishes, running team fight. And this is just showing that they have those different hats. They have that versatility, which you need to have as a team. We've seen all throughout Worlds, people, NA, RIP, have one strategy that does not work out because people learn it. And this is great, because when you throw out different strategies and you have these different things, you throw pick bans off, and in the state the pick ban is right now, you can only get to throw off one strategy.
I want to take us back to the beginning of the game. We're hammering a lot on the compositions, but now I want to look at the way it was played out a little bit, because we had some criticisms about the Chinese team's ability to deal with the lane swaps. This time around, they seem to be a lot more comfortable with the way that the lane swaps are working out.
I think that it was, like, in terms of European lane swap, that what people like to call it, I don't like to call it.
Didn't start Europe.
Yeah, I know, exactly. You know, like, lane swaps to me is like chemistry, right? It's the same everywhere, but it's just a thing about reactions up to what people do. Just like chemistry, when you mix different things. Yeah, you got it.
This is beautiful.
You guys are looking at question marks and telling you.
Tell me the story.
Keep going, man.
In that case, it was played, like, perfectly, you know, like the top lane is coming into the wave that is coming in, and the bot lane is going to the wave that is coming out. That is lane swaps. I like it.
I think actually Fnatic was a team that made the first error in the lane swap, because what happened is Koro burnt Huni's ultimate and summoner spell, and then they felt like they couldn't control dragons, so they actually sent their bottom lane back top lane, and they kind of started the situation we're in. Whereas if they had have sent the Vayne down, there was only a 1 level difference at that point for some reason. Normally you're 4.5 to 6, and that's when you get the dragon as Mordekaiser. Reckless had reached level 5. I honestly felt they could nearly have contested Dragon 1, and if they had have got the first Dragon by a stroke of luck with the GP ultimate and then the Vayne being able to kite out very well, this game would have been like, EDG would have nearly had to roll over from that point. You drop a Dragon with this composition, you are in very big trouble.
I feel like in that particular scenario, like Mordekaiser kind of causes this very strange scenario. Like in this case, like in lane swap, usually you send your bottom lane top lane because that is the way that it's coming out, as I just explained. But with the Mordekaiser in the mix, it kind of changes your priorities in a way. I think you have to give up those creeps, as you said, for the gangplank to just make sure your bottom lane goes down bottom to just contest that dragon, because I completely agree with you.
I also feel Gangplank ult is just so important in this matchup.
Hugely impactful spell.
Gangplank just as a champion, right? He's farming, he's getting extra goals.
Also that, hugely impactful champion.
And while he's farming, he's getting assists across the map. But we haven't seen a lot of fighting in this game just yet. It's all of that just stalling out. And like we said before, it's time. And also another thing, like, because I'm a jungler and I was watching Rainover during the lane swap, he's taking some CS there. He's 18 CS after. I'm sitting there, I'm like, those aren't jungle creeps.
Right. We were looking at the difference between Reckless and Deft was pretty large for being,
those 20
4
to 28
or 5 minutes into the game.
Percentage-wise is huge.
Yeah. I do want to look at the junglers, though, because it was another thing that we brought up. We brought up earlier in the day and before this game, the Rainover and Clearlove matchup. Game 1, Clearlove got the better of him 100%, was running him around. This time, given the lane swap, they haven't had a ton of interaction with each other, but how do we feel Rainover is stepping up or not in this game?
It's kind of funny because the lane swap, in a way, hid Rainover and Huni from Clearlove and Koro, because in the last game at 16 minutes, there were 8 deaths for Fnatic. 7 of them were Huni and Rainover. They were getting smashed in the top lane, and Rainover he seemed a little off. He wasn't watching his tremor sense in the previous game. This game, aside from the bug happening, which is not his fault at all, he has been kind of just playing around the map, not to the best of the degree, because EDG is actually controlling vision. EDG is actually, I think, they are the second best warding team out of the teams here. KT is the one that's above them currently, but EDG is just having immense vision control, which they can't really seem to keep up with on Fnatic here, and I feel like Koro's also contributing to that, which is another thing, is that everybody on EDG is stepping up.
The thing is, like, with Rainover in this particular case, there's not much he can do, because we've highlighted the fact that EDG has the stronger matchups, both in the split push, in the 1-3-1, which EDG is trying to pressure to gain access. The fact that Rainover is farming and keeping up with levels, that is the important thing, because I feel, in the current state, I feel like Fnatic is winning, simply because EDG is not pushing their advantages enough. I want to see the 1-3-1 go into the enemy jungle and deny Rainover's farm completely.
I completely agree, and the other thing you have to take into consideration is the lane to gank is a joy lane right now, because it's very hard to gank Fiora, and it's almost impossible to gank a pushing mid laner, in the fact that Forbidden is pushing into pawn a lot of the time, and you do not want to Gragas gank Mordekaiser. It's very easy to prep the Q with Mordekaiser, and as he flies into you, just completely destroy the Gragas. I actually give credit to Rainover here, because I thought he would tunnel vision on Rek'Sai to the point that they would prioritize it over Gragas, and I feel that EDG wanted Gragas in this composition, because with the mid lane turret still up, it is so easy as Gragas to sneak around the side, chuck your ultimate out and give an alley-oop to the Kassadin Mordekaiser, and Rainover had enough courage, I guess, in this matchup to not prioritize his better champion and take the Gragas for the team.
And here's the thing as well, when you look at that, between that, Rek'Sai versus Gragas brings way more disengage to the fight, and if you want to set up a 1-3-1, Fiora split push, Kassadin split push, you need a disengager in the 3-person, and they don't have that currently, so that might throw off the 1-3-1, because right now, who's going to contest Kassadin in the split push now? Right? There's nobody on this team who can do it. You don't send Fiora to go down with it.
Who's going to contest a Fiora?
Yeah.
Gangplank's just going to get done.
You have 2 major threats.
Many things left unanswered. Now, as we continue to investigate the issue on stage, let's hear what Forbidden thinks of his lane opponent, Pawn.
He was extremely good, but I think I was pretty bad back then, and I improved so much. And what he's good at is playing for his team. He can basically play whatever. His laning phase is really solid. He plays most of the champions. He plays really good for his team. He roams a lot. He sacrifices himself for the team. That's what he's good at.
We have some statistics here, just so we can continue to facilitate conversation. Forbidden was up 30 CS at 10 and 39 CS at 20 minutes in Game 1 as Victor versus Twisted Fate, and was 36% of the team's damage, going 5, 1, and 10.
Yeah, I think Forbidden's been having an amazing tournament and showing that this rookie does have a ton to show. He's had so much potential since he first got on the Rift, and we saw him in Challenger, and now making it to the place where he could go from quarters to semifinals and top 4 team in the world. Just a big leap, and you can show that he's living up to his potential.
Yeah, I want to talk about another rookie, the guy that he completely crushed in lane when they played Invictus Gaming, right? And this is a person that is heralded as the next Faker when he was coming out of Korea, and one of the better laners in the LPL, which has some good mid laners, and Forbiven did an absolutely marvelous job. As soon as he did that, because I saw a lot of Forbiven, but you always question regional performances, just like people will now question the Chinese regional performance because of the MSI performance he had. But I completely agree with him. He is night and day, so much better after MSI. Probably the steepest increase in a player that I've nearly ever seen on the world stage.
I'm happy also that he recognizes the fact, because there was so much hype around Forbiven simply because he killed Faker at MSI, but in my opinion, his performance at MSI was okay, it was decent, it was good, but comparing that to now, there's such a big difference. That hype he had around him back then when he killed Faker should be around him now, because I remember the particular matchup EDG versus Fnatic. Han was destroying Forbiven with a bad matchup. He was playing LeBlanc into Zed, and Zed is considered a stronger part in this matchup, and he was getting smacked.
Yeah, and I think a big thing about watching these two guys is also sorry, my brain just farted. What just happened?
That's all right. We'll talk about something else because I got.
Anyway, sorry. So when you watch Forbiven in the mid lane, and he said that he's gotten better over time, it's not just domestic performances that you have to watch, it's also international performances. Because we see people have great domestic performances, but they can't transition to the international stage. Their nerves get to them. But Forbiven has been rock solid there in the mid lane. His CS has been going up, his differentials have been amazing, and his ability to kill you in lane is something that you can never underestimate against this guy. He is always very present in his games.
And another thing that you have to really give credit to, because of how much pressure gets put on top lane for Fnatic, and then because of the fact that Yellowstar and Reckless, at the moment at least because of the cannon, are playing very much in tandem for the first part of the game, how hard it is to get these CS differentials in mid lane against other teams that like to play mid lane centric comps, and EDG can flex and do that. So being able to have these dominant performances in mid lane is just, once again, it's really impressive because of the way Fnatic play the game.
He's like a god version of Predator. Doesn't get the resources, but still wins mid lane. I think
100% agree.
Marvelous play.
However, in this tournament, he has actually gotten the second highest gold share on his team. Traditionally, coming into the tournament, we were looking at EU mid laners as having the lowest percentage of their team's gold, so that is indicative of the region generally starving their mid laners. Somehow he has scraped together a little bit more gold in this tournament.
He's continued to play Azir Vector. In that case, I will actually say that stat is lying a little bit, because we've seen a lot of Kassadin and champions like this that don't necessarily get that. The wave clear mid laners that Forbiven has continued to play and play well do generally get a higher share of gold than, say, the Fizzes, the Dianas, and the Kassadins that we've been seeing a lot.
And it also speaks to like what the European meta kind of evolved into. Like, all mid laners were complaining with the fact that mid lane was just an island and nothing happened on, where you just farmed, and everything was impacted by the bot lane and mid lane when you transitioned the vision in that area into mids. And I feel like that speaks a lot to how Forbiven plays in his playstyle.
I want to get back to the game state that we saw when we left, which was that Dragon up, we're looking at the next Dragon fight. I want to figure out how Fnatic defends or takes a Baron for themselves. Because to me it seems, with a Gangplank and Azir, you want to be the team that gets there first in this scenario and be entirely set up. But while Fiora is pushing a Gangplank into a second tier turret, it seems nearly impossible for them to actually properly set up for the team fight that they will win at Dragon.
Yeah, currently, the lines that they have for wards are actually in their own jungle, going across blue and red in a diagonal. They have a ton of pink wards on Fnatic's own side. So what they need to do is push their ward lines forward to get there first. Of course, you might have to sack a dragon for it, because you see EDG really want to go for dragons here. That's the thing, is you can trade dragon for Baron. You have Azir, you have Vayne, you have Gangplank, you have so much damage that you can deal to this. You're going to take it rather quickly. You would have to get proper vision of the area, though. That's just the big thing, is EDG will not let you do that so easily.
So the thing that EDG did really well, if you go back and watch this game, is they actually transitioned their wards to the top red side of the jungle very well. They had red buff warded in one end, the ward going up to the turret as well. And what that meant is that Huni was really hesitant to go slow push the wave, and he actually got beaten there. And they actually lost this Dragonflight, in my opinion, the way it is going to play out a minute and a half ago, because they didn't get Scuttlecrab. Like, Scuttlecrab is so important for Mordekaiser teams. As soon as you secure Scuttlecrab with Mordekaiser, he hides around the corner, he takes one step onto the crab, flashes, and he's got this big movement speed bonus with his shield. So if they had have been able to get there early, this is a fight they should have been able to contest because they have the first upgrade from gameplay. But it just didn't work out that way because they weren't there.
I feel like Fnatic is actually in a dominating position. I feel like EDG are playing slow enough.
Yep.
Kassadin was freezing the bot lane for some time, and I feel like Fnatic can just wait for the 4th dragon and do the fight right there.
All right, well, while we work out the issues on stage, we're going to take the opportunity to check out a few of your answers to our question of the day. To remind everyone, earlier we asked which player or lane will have the biggest impact today and why. Jack Adams says Yellow Star is going to have the most impact. His calls and plays are unstoppable.
Milk those. His Alistar were really good game one.
Well, yeah, I mean, we talked about how to deal with the triple and the triple TPs, and it was the decisive calls to make those aggressive team fights that put you in a global comp in a tough decision.
It's like how we describe Yellowstar back in Europe is that the good supports like Methy, Vander, and Castle, they take 98% of the chance that they get, but Yellowstar is a person that creates his own opportunities. He kind of finds the engages that nobody kind of sees, and in this particular game, the first of the set, we saw that Yellowstar was kind of a genius in that.
Next up, Even Horn says the bot lane for both teams, neither Reckless nor Deft, will give the other any room to play. Hashtag friendship goals.
No room to play.
Is that friendship goals or?
No, I mean, you're actually making each other better players if you're actually just keeping each other honest. So that was one of the things too. When I saw the Jace AD carry come out, I was like, Reckless is sitting there in this game going, he never said that in the Skype group. It just feels betrayed. Where are the secret strats?
This is one thing that I'm really interested in, just because of like the diversity between the AD carries. Like, you look at Reckless and he plays very utility focused, which is why I'm super happy that he's on Vayne, because I don't think that's how he has to play. I think that he can play other stuff. He just likes to play that way for his team because of Fnatic. Whereas you see Deft's like even damage in game one. Like, this guy is just like, he will eke every single piece of damage out of his champion, and it's just completely different. Like, one wants to be that big damage threat in team fights, and one just wants his team to win. Like, they're both going for the same goals, but they do it in very different favors, and that's why I actually give a lot of respect to both AD carries. I think that they're almost getting to the point where you don't necessarily compare them as like EU Deft versus Deft anymore, because they have diversified a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
Now I want to talk then, since we're on the topic of AD carries, and we have Mordekaiser versus Vayne here, a lot of people don't have too much information on if this was a 2v2 matchup, how specifically those AD carries interact. So when you have a Mordekaiser on one side, is Vayne the proper pick, or they chose the lane swap, so I'm assuming isn't the best 2v2 anyway?
I think the first thought that comes to mind is Vayne has issues in the early game against things that push hard. And I think Vayne in this particular matchup would just sit under her tower and Mordekaiser would have priority on almost any objective in the area. So in that regard, I feel it is kind of a dangerous pick. But then again, in the mid game, into late game, she is very mobile, doesn't need to itemize the crit. She just itemizes the attack speed and movement speed, and I think in that regard, it kind of works out.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I also think it's very support-centric, right? If you're able to get something that can trim the wave, you don't necessarily have to play a lane swap situation. However, they didn't go with that. I think that we're going to see a lot. If Mordekaiser keeps getting through, we'll see a lot of Kalista, a lot of Vayne. Same reason, very good kite back at AD carries. Both do a lot of damage to the person in front of them. The Hurricane build seems to be popular because of the wave clear in the matchup, but I would like to see people adapt Bang's build, where he goes very single target focus with something like a static ship in there, because if you put a lot of spears into the Mordekaiser, all of a sudden he is very scared to try and continue this fight. And I think that is something that they can definitely take advantage of.
Yeah, I definitely think, echoing both of your sentiments here, very support-centric in the matchups, but you don't want to run a low-mobility AD carry into Mordekaiser, because as soon as he gets a Rylai's Crystal Scepter, you're never getting away from him, and he's just going to bonk you 3 times and kill you. So definitely think about the support you want to take, and you also have to consider the Mordekaiser support. Does he have a Zillion? Does he even have a Lulu or a Blitzcrank, right? Something that's going to enable him to get to you or bring you to him.
Now, we have mentioned that EDG's primary win condition is the 5 dragons, but I want to return to the topic of engage, because as it stands, they have very little, if any, engage. Their most reliable source of engage is either a Rek'Sai tunnel or a
Так, ну я сейчас, наверное, прерву Стрим, потому что ничего не происходит, какие-то технические проблемы у риотов. Поэтому как только начнется игра, я возобновлюсь.
Alright, well, because of the game-altering bug that prevented Reignover from casting Gragas' Q, the game will undergo a full remake with new picks and bans. Now, to allow the teams time to strategize and regroup, we will be taking a short break, but don't go anywhere. The World's quarterfinals will continue right after this.
Неожиданно. То есть будет перевыбор, полный перевыбор. И проблема с Градиусом. С пушкой была. Да, перевыбор. Будут новые пики. Смогут команды сейчас обсудить, что и как. Блин, ну обидно, 20 минут команды сыграли, конечно.
Welcome back to the 2015 World's quarterfinals, where Fnatic currently leads the series 1-0. Because of a game-altering bug, the teams have accepted a full remake with new picks and bans. And while the teams load up on the stage, let's look at the draft from the last game and see how things could change in just a few moments. We did a great job talking about everything that could have happened with those team comps. There's going to be new ones coming through, gentlemen. So here we go. With all this information in mind, the teams obviously stay on the same sides. What do we expect to see change? Azir
on EG side, maybe. But then again, like Spawn, the thing you've been talking about, like the LPL's cockiness, I can still see that coming to play.
I think the real question is which of these teams felt like they were in the winning position when the game was left, right? Because if I'm EDG and I say, look, we were on track to make the 5 Dragons, no problem, and win this game, and and Fnatic is going to leave it open again, maybe they just go for the same comp.
I'd be a little scared if I was Fnatic saying if we do exactly the same thing, they might do something else besides the Kassadin and kind of round out the wave clear of the composition. But they were shoving up waves, and it showed that when they first picked the Mordekaiser and you first pick Gangplank, they're just going to play Fiora into it and they're going to have an okay time. So if I'm Fnatic, I might throw things off there and ban those 2 champions.
That is a matchup that if I'm Fnatic, I look at and I'm like, how did we actually plan to deal with this late game? Because we kind of need Gangplank in the comp to help the kite back, and Fiora is never going to join. And one thing that we didn't really hit on is the kite back out of EDG with Rylai's Crystal Scepter wasn't actually that horrible. It's really hard to catch Gangplank Mordekaiser when they start running, Kassadin and Mordekaiser when they start running away, and Fiora is just going to split push. And we saw yesterday, even without armor items, this champion turret dives the absolute heck out of everyone.
Something that we did discuss coming out of Champion Select of the last game, or the remade game, was the fact that Fnatic curiously still banned Tahm Kench and Lulu while leaving the Mordekaiser GP up. If you're red side and you're going to get 2 picks following the first, why not leave a second large priority pickup with the knowledge that you're going to get 2? You're either going to get like GP Lulu or Mord Lulu, which are both great.
Would be crazy. You run something that enables him to get in. You get so much movement speed from the Whimsy and all that, so the help picks and all that, and just giving him so much more and enabling the Mordekaiser. That would just be, if they didn't first pick Mord, you'd have a really good core on your hands.
So there's a comp that the EDG ran a lot, which is Korra actually plays top Lulu. Jinx was undefeated. Def was undefeated on Jinx apart from 1 game against QG, and Azir is really good at shutting that comp down. So if you do that, I actually think they nearly first pick Lulu and run the Jinx Lulu comp that we've seen so much success with right now, because
you run Jinx Lulu into GP Mord though?
Into GP Mord, yeah.
Okay.
Heck yeah. How the heck do they get on top of it with an Azir?
I feel
I would do that.
There's so many question marks, because I was thinking about Lulu, but that puts Pawn on Azir, and there's so many questions if they ban Fiora, maybe the other side will first pick Gangplank. If they Tahm Kench, Fnatic has been banning it a lot. I remember that Fnatic played it in the finals against Origin, so we know that Yosa can play it. Surprising that they still ban it. But there are so many question marks that get raised if you change up the bans.
Yeah, 100%.
First do you ban Fiora? They will just first pick GP. It's so difficult.
I think Tahm Kench would be the most reasonable and you take, because you're happy to eat up your game as soon as Mord goes on and keep whatever carry is
способный выжить 6 городских кварталов.
That to me seems the most reasonable. A quick note, just for everybody at home, Gragas will remain enabled. There was a discussion about whether or not he should be disabled. Will remain enabled.
6 кварталов, 6 кварталов.
I expect that he'll remain in, regardless of the bug, he'll remain in that kind of power trinity of junglers.
Special circumstance to create what happened and make sure that players are informed it doesn't happen again. Avoid
extraordinarily rare.
If it was
Выжгет участок, от посадки до ясных. Вообще ничего живого здесь нет. Неважно, причем неважно, кто-то где-то прятаться будет и будет уничтожить все. И такое, и название дали Буратино. И сейчас он ролик включил, а там музыка. Действительно, 6 кварталов выжить. Не будешь смотреть, как его интересно. Но весело. А модернизированную версию назвали Сомсипёк.
He was a very good team fighting jungler, but he also has a lead.
I disagree. I love how you said he showed his Gragas wasn't horrible. He's got to do nothing bad. 0-0. He didn't show that it was good.
Just right, because if he was good, he'd be 10-0.
It's like Fnatic's
but he controlled Vision well and he didn't get invaded. That's really all we need to do at the start of the game.
It's like surviving is doing something good for Fnatic side. If they survive with this team composition, they're doing good.
Yeah,
should be applauded for that.
I want to say, that is a team comp thing. I'm not making the generalization that is how every Gragas game should be played, but in what should be an accelerated game for EDG, Gragas being able to keep up wards, keep the lane safe, and not give up the mid lane turret is 100% doing Gragas's job in that game.
Yeah, I think so much of this game is going to be dictated in that first 10 seconds of pick ban where we see the bans. Which is that, is Fnatic going to roll the dice again and say, you can have your pick of the GP more, and that'll shape the entirety of the pick ban phase. Let's pretend that those are both banned out this time, as opposed to left open, and we see what is considered more of a traditional pick ban as of yet in the meta for this tournament. Then where do the teams go?
It depends on what isn't banned out of Lulu Callisto Tom Kench. Because if Lulu's left up, you snatch that up for EDG and you run it with a centric comp around Deft. 100% I think that's what you do. If Callista's up, you could probably take that rather early as well. See how you fare with it. I know that there are different things that Deft likes to play, but giving him a self-sufficient AD carry like that could be a way to go. And then Tom Kench just is Tom Kench, man. Like, that guy, as soon as he's unbenched, I want to see
Deficio says he's the most OP champion in the game.
I honestly think he is as well. I agree with Deficio.
I think you have a good point. Yeah. Like with that in mind, with what you just said, I really doubt that Fnatic is going to change the red side strategy. I think this trade is very beneficial for them simply because they're so afraid of the Tamkins, the Kalista, as you said.
I also think that this matchup, because we've seen two very different games, is coming down a lot to coaching and how much Aaron and Daylor have prepared, because Aaron is, like, once again, the MSI strategy game 5, but Daylor is also a fantastic coach, and his pick ban phase so far has been, like, incredibly sound. So I want to know if they change it up. I also want to know whether Pawn is willing to pick Viger into these control majors, because if he is and they are able to run the Viger Jinx, like, I know that it was exposed, but I think that is, once again, another curveball that you can throw at this team. How do you deal with Siege? You've, like, done with the poke, and now we've run this all melee. Now we'll go to Siege and just continue to throw game plans out there.
I definitely agree. I think that Tom Kench right up here, and then Veigar's like right under him, just barely under him in terms of best champions in the game at the moment. But yeah, one of the reasons we are having so much time here on the desk before the game is because we're giving the coaches that prep time, and they're definitely using it right now because we haven't gone into game, right? They're
it's not just because we want to talk.
Like,
we promise.
They are strategizing right now, thinking about it, because it is a huge conundrum here. You're sitting here thinking, do we leave it the same? What if they switch it up on us? And both teams are doing that, right? You're not having an agreement of what's happening over again, because if you think, because nobody got a big feel for if the other person was really confident in their comp, or if they're going to change it up. So it's a huge mind game going on.
It was a really tentative game in general. I want to return to something that we brought up at the beginning of the day, which is that Fnatic is a relatively top lane focused team. We usually see a lot of resources pumped into Huni and his lane EDG, generally favoring more of the bottom side of the map. But if we recall game 1, the numerous dives over onto Huni and the inability, and we see him on the screen now, for Reignover to get up there and help him until about 17 minutes into the game when they made the realization that they could. That matchup specifically here when he was playing GP as well against the Fiora, getting pushed in consistently, all of a sudden this top lane matchup seems more tilted in EGZ's favor.
Well, one thing I want to point out, and we spoke about it a lot, in our opinion, Fiora is like S-tier top lane right now. Yeah. And kind of like Elise, if you bring any other jungler to Fiora's lane and you get the 2v2, that is a one skirmish just because of Fiora's skirmishing potential. She gets to choose, unlike a lot of champions, every 3 seconds whether she wants to go in or out. Like, I just cannot stress how important that is to decision-making process. And to his credit, he was there every single time they wanted to start the gank in game 1. He was just like that half a second, kind of like yesterday, that half a second too late, and the Fiora just wins out in the 1v1 matchup.
4 minutes to champion select, just want to throw that in there. That's the ETA as of right now, back into the matter.
It's also like the fact that I feel like Krillov and Koro are actually working together. Like with Amazing J, there was very low amount of teamwork. Krillov, it felt almost in a way like, oh shit, I cannot gank top, I just gank bottom, level 2 gank, do some crazy stuff. It feels like in the early game they had a plan, there was cohesion, and they worked together.
Yeah, and just looking at the statistics that they had, everybody on EDG's team had 77% or higher in kill participation, except for Amazing J, who had 50%. So they were basically leaving Amazing J out to dry. And if you look at it on the flip side, everybody on the side of Fnatic has less than 70%, so they're very skirmish focused, but we're seeing more team fight out of it.
Yeah, one thing I do want to point out is that Amazing J is a split pusher and Koro's the captain. So when you have the shot caller and captain in jungle and top lane, And like, it's such an important map. You can nearly guarantee that he's going to be like, you need to help me against Huni, because Huni's still a class act, and like one bad performance isn't going to keep the guy down. And you even saw that one bad 10 minutes of the game didn't keep him down for the next 20 minutes of the game even. But yeah, once again, that's just credit to being able to swap things up on the fly, going from a split pushing top laner to a top laner that needs help, and being able to pivot on that.
Yeah, and one complaint that EDG was having was that they were not communicating during the group stages, and when they threw Koro back in, their comms cleaned up, their captain was back, he was facilitating the conversation, and as a jungler myself, that's what you need. You need information, even if it's just, he used his Q, he used his E, he used his dash. What is my window of timing? Where are the wards? Communicate with me, and when somebody's giving me a ton of communication and information, I'm gonna go to that lane, because I know the opportunities that are being presented there, and I feel like that's what's going on between Koro and Koro.
Yeah, we had some questions about, you know, how Koro would mix.
Если женщина родила и вырастила троих и более детей, и перед выходом на пенсию в регионе, где она проживает, была естественно убыль населения, она сможет уйти на заслуженный отдых в 47 лет.
So that's just another thing that Koro has brought to the team here in the bracket stages, is just the ability to pick Fiora and play it pretty well.
Well, it's actually funny because you have Darius to blame for that, because rumor has it that EDG was screaming TSM and Amazing J picked Fiora and Darius picked Darius and like trash canned the guy, like to the point that he will never pick Fiora in a competitive game. And Amazing J actually credited him in one of his interviews when he picked the Darius into the Fiora matchup, because he was like, I used to think it was a losing matchup, and then Darius made me a believer with how badly that lane turned against me. So that's probably why he wasn't prioritizing it, because he didn't want it to happen again.
I think it's strange throughout the tournament that we have seen so little Fiora.
What the heck?
Because for us, every time we've seen a Fiora, we're like, oh my goodness, this is so broken. She's jumping around, healing, hitting vitals, doing stuff. And finally, a team is putting focus on it, because, as you said, in these skirmishes, it's so strong. What is a bad matchup for Fiora? Nothing. There's nothing that Fiora is bad against, I can imagine.
You definitely have to put in a lot of time on Fiora, though. Her mechanics are very similar to Riven's in terms of auto-canceling, using your Hydra at the right time, and having those windows, because you can do things like Q, input buffer, and auto-attack, get your E auto-attack, reset Ravenous Hydra, and then another E. There's all these different things, and then using Riposte at the right time, and just having that reaction time, as well as prediction and seeing what's coming out. So you have to put in the games.
I also feel there was a tiny bit of confusion about build path on Fiora, because I saw an awful lot of Hydra Essence Reaver Fioras like rushing, and I was like, I don't know what the heck is going on here. Whereas it, like, from what I've
known, вы уже выберите что-нибудь, не то вы бесите 3 паса.
Into Black Cleaver, into defensive MR items to be able to boost that healing, and that seems to be much more successful, even against armor.
Yeah, you need CDR for those breakpoints on your Q, so you can continually use it to reposition on people for vital.
It's like we're saying that Fiora is a hard champion to master, but we have pro players playing at the World Championship. This is the time to show up with these champions. We cannot make excuses for the pro players. They need to figure out the builds.
I mean, well, and this is where we're seeing it become a benefit to the people that have picked it up. So this, only serves your point, which is that the people who have managed to pick her up, we're seeing the power of it, because every time we watch it, we go, what the heck is happening? This champion is so strong.
And as soon as Myron ran over that 4v5 in the SKT game, I was just like, what the heck is this champion? And like, it's so great, because if you run it with Gragas Fiora, it's pretty much a Janna in the team fight without having to give up like the fact that you have to run a disengaged support. All of a sudden you can run Alistar or Braum with it, great engage from your support, and still have that disengaged heal in the team fight.
You know, the final set of players that we've talked about briefly, but not very much actually in this matchup, Mako versus Yellowstar. We've talked about the calls of Yellowstar, the fact that he creates advantages for his team and opportunities for his team beyond just taking the ones that are presented to him. I want to look at Mako on the other side of things, playing Thresh again this last game. A player that I feel gets overlooked pretty often on that team, but creates a lot for them.
He's my MVP on the team. It's funny because when I look at like Niels and he's a rookie, then I look at Forbidden and he's a rookie, and I hear a lot of this term thrown out. Mako was a rookie. He wasn't even the starting support for their team. He was brought in by Death's request because Death loved playing with him. He was actually a substitute. And this guy just does so much around the map. Like his Thresh plays in game 1, he was saving people left, right, and center. The turret dive, the top lane play. He's just, honestly, he's a playmaker, and he's got like a calm, quiet demeanor, which people overlook and that we value very highly.
Very modest.
Yeah, if you were going to make a rookie team out of the World Championship, you'd throw Niels and Mako in the bottom lane for me, like 100%.
I also think that Mako being the playmaker is a big thing for this team because he's a large part of how they start fights and how they disengage them. And like you look at Yellowstar, he's a great skirmishing player, right? He can start fights, but Mako is very versatile in the disengage portion of it as well. Mako has a really good sense of what fight they can take and which ones they can't take. And I really love that about him. And people are like, oh, he's at the right place at the right time. No. He sees this coming and he realizes that his players need help. And I feel that's a great instinct to have as a support.
I feel like whenever we're talking about good supports, we're talking about the high.
I gotta interrupt because we've been talking for far too long. It's time to send it over to the casters to get us back onto the rift.
Thank you very much, Dash, and the rest of the analyst desk. As we do get into picks and bans, I do want to take a moment to clarify the situation where we find ourselves. The issue that appeared in-game prevented Rainover from casting the Gragas Q spell, and the refereeing team, they did investigate and exhaust every single option to resolve the issue in-game, including allowing Gragas to die and attempt to resolve the matter. After the issue remained, Fnatic was then offered the opportunity to remake, which they accepted. That is, as per the rules, the remake will now include new picks and bans because team strategies were revealed, including playstyle. Gragas will remain enabled because of the popularity of the champion on the current patch, but we will state right now, if the bug does appear, the champion will be disabled the remainder of the tournament. So that is something just to keep in mind. We can only apologize. It is, and we can only apologize to the teams, to everybody watching. The remake will be starting shortly with picks and bans. So let's shake this off and talk about Mordekai's and, in my opinion, GP. Do we think teams are going to allow both of these champions to once again go through picks and bans?
Well, I mean, we saw from Fnatic, their bans were Lulu, Kalista, Tahm Kench. If they want to do that again, I want to see Tahm Kench and Kalista being banned first and have that Lulu as the potential bait against EDG. But I also think for EDG, they saw the gangplank, they saw the kite composition being built by Fnatic, so they knew, or now they know, Fnatic has an answer to the Mordekai's.
Yeah, and I think that if they did leave the Lulu up, then EDG would have changed their first pick and actually would have first picked the GP instead and not taken the Mordekaiser. Mordekaiser into GP and Lulu is kind of ridiculous.
So, Fnatic...
But there she finds herself on the ban list already.
Yeah, Kennen as well for EDG. They banned Elise and then they banned Sivir last time around. Obviously, that is what left Mordekaiser and GP open. And for now, it is exactly the same. Fnatic now do not want to ban one of the two OPs. Oh, now they will, because Mordekaiser got banned. So now GP is what you want to ban away if you are Fnatic. And say, we don't want to risk it. But that does leave Tahm Kench open.
For Fnatic to potentially pick?
Well, for you. I'm not expecting Tahm Kench first pick.
Last game was Rek'Sai, first pick, when Elise was off the table.
I mean, Fnatic got to make the decision now. Do we have a composition we want to run against the Gangplank? Then we ban the Tahm Kench now, we give them first pick.
I don't think you can. Yeah, I don't think you can give away Gangplank without getting one back.
Been super risky, at least. But again, this is a team that is not afraid of taking chances. Rek'Sai would be the obvious first pick. Tahm Kench, yes, he's fantastic. But it does require a composition where it makes sense to pick him into.
So like a bit of a fanboy there, Deficio, of that champion. Fnatic now have the option to pick in two of their preferred. Hyper carries are still up and available, the likes of Jinx. We have the tower pushing power of Tristana. Cannon away. Sivir's available. Fnatic could go Sivir
so
and pause.
So are Jinx and Caitlyn, which was also mentioned as being practiced by Deft fairly recently.
If you are Fnatic now, you might say we want to take some safe picks. We don't want to show too much. Then you go for Gragas here for Reyno and say we want to see more of your picks before we start building a composition. Or you take some of the safer top lanes we have seen being blind picked, Darius and Fiora and so on, for Hunio there. But he's shown he wants to play different kinds of top lanes.
And I would like to combo that Gragas with a Thresh if you are trying to try and keep your first round without giving much away. There is the Kenchi. All right, we got the Kench into Flame Chompers combo.
You get your Tahm
I'm so happy. The only problem is it's like 3 weeks too late. Yeah. If I go on one of my Kobe rants on Tahm Kench, that people just
the thing
annoyed.
Is, I stole your notes anyway, and I already said everything you had prepared.
But everybody wants to hear the Kobe rant, so we'll see how practiced Yellowstar is on this champion. Because we've seen him.
He played it before it was cool,
but it wasn't good.
Before it was buffed,
but it wasn't good.
Okay,
it really was not good.
But
they lost that game.
He now had 4 more weeks or 5 weeks to practice even more. I think Jinx Tahm Kench is one of the best combos you can pick, because it gives Jinx that extra mobility in the late game that she needs to survive his team fights, and also in the laning phase, it's very hard to all in on a Jinx when Tahm Kench is next to her. He basically just makes almost every lane a farm lane because he stops that all in from happening.
There's the I was looking at the Caitlyn already for the other side here, picked up by Def. Like we said, he's been practicing it fairly recently. We'll see if they actually end up in that 2 versus 2, because Caitlyn can try and bully them off. Jinx can switch to Rock instead and actually trade. So it definitely will be determined by the support pick.
Well, what do we have seen so far from teams when they play against Tahm Kench, because it's so fairly new? They pick some all-in comps, like, oh, we're going to play like an Annie Kalista lane, and we're going to try and all-in the AD carry. Tahm Kench eats it and says, no, that's not going to happen. Caitlyn, on the other hand, is a lane where you're going to push and push and push all the time. I think that's way better against Tahm Kench, because he doesn't offer any sustain for his AD carry outside of Relic Shield. So poke them down, poke them, don't all in. That's what Caitlyn offers.
And we're going to see the Riven for Huni. Fembevin will secure Gragas once more for Rado.
Interesting with the top lane carry here into the Fiora. This is going to be such an interesting skill match between Riven and Fiora. Once again, though, I think there may be a lane swap brewing.
I think there's a good chance we see Morgana as well, and just instantly just locked in here.
This is what we were also talking about. When you have Caitlyn going for that siege, you want to combo it with something in the mid lane that really, really supplements the siege. And Veigar, we've already seen it many times by specifically the North American teams putting in a lot of time on that. But Mon has been practicing it heavily in solo queue, and EDG will try group up early, knock down the outer turrets, but also while they're knocking down the outer turrets, fish for that binding, fish for that cage to try and get that pick. And yes, Tahm Kench can eat somebody out of the binding, but the cage blocks off a huge zone.
Still, Tahm Kench, to me, is a very, very good Veigar counter, due to the fact he can remove that one-shot potential.
Probably burst.
However, EDG are not looking necessarily to one-shot someone. They're looking to zone you off your tower and take your tower.
It's about the area that you can control.
You cannot eat the tower. That doesn't work. That doesn't work.
I tried.
That was in your notes, Kobe, so I trust you.
Well, Featherman's got a couple seconds left to lock in his counter. He's had great performances on LeBlanc. And we'll see whether or not he can get some early pressure against Veigar.
Here's the one thing. Well, I'm a huge Tahm Kench fan. He is not the all-in-one tank. He is not a hard engage tank. So it's actually fairly risky for you to try and engage with Tahm Kench and use the Abyssal Voyage. It's much better at cutting people off and sort of corralling people into a direction to control with the rest of your team.
This is a very mixed composition for Fnatic.
Yeah.
You got the Riven split push coming in. You want to assassinate someone with LeBlanc, and you want to have these big kiting team fights with the Jinx Tahm Kench. So it's a bit of everything for them. The problem is if they want a 1-3-1, Jinx wave play in the mid lane. Again, she needs to get in there with the rockets. She can't clear really far away from.
Yeah, the thing is, I want to reiterate this one more time. It's a bit of everything except for a really hard engage. They would have to have Flash with Riven or some crazy Gragas ultimate, because if Tahm Kench Abyssal Voyage into the back line, he gets stunned with whoever he brings.
And he wants to be in the back.
Exactly. If you put up the cage, you can stun them both. He can't save anyone if he's stunned as well. He has to get his own Merc Treads. He has to get some sort of QSS or Mikhails or something to pull that out.
Luckily on the side of Fnatic, they have shown a penchant for engaging at the right time in the right place, and they'll need to keep that up. Guys, this is the remake game 2 of this best of 5. Hashtag EDG win with that Veigar mid, or hashtag FNC win. The Yellow Star will get his hands on the Tahm Kench. Vision and flanking going to be so important for Fnatic. They've done it in the past when Huni has played Riven. They've shown they have an ability to get into TP into the jungle and hop over walls. And they may need to do that again to get behind that baby cage that Veigar can put down.
Yeah, the early game is so key in this matchup. When you have a siege composition, if they do well in the laning phase and get to rotate the AD carry into mid and start the siege on your tower, there's often very few answers other than like a TP flank happening. If that fails, you fall so far behind. But the same can be said for EDG here with their comp. If they start losing lanes to Riven and LeBlanc, the crazy pick potential for Fnatic to just run over them.
And this is the thing, Jinx can take a turret very quickly, so Fnatic can trade objectives fairly efficiently as well. Face checking here.
This is risky.
Deep wards they've been seen coming in.
And Fnatic did a similar thing in the previous game. EDG have adapted.
They're going to get Reckless and Yellowstone.
Oh, it's got to pay off.
Tremor Sense is showing two members of Fnatic nearby. EDG very patient.
They're sort of pinging two guys with the Rek'Sai, so they know it's not 5 members running from Fnatic, but EDG is still
a brush with death there.
Not gonna pull the trigger.
And they escape.
Fnatic get deep wards down. They know the wards are in place, so EDG. No one's shot out to my boyfriend. Are they gonna look for the lane swap, or will they use the warding information to dance around?
Okay. So basically, yeah, as you just said it, they want to dance around where the wards are being placed. It's often the same ward placement you see when these invades happen. We have to be able to block every entrance towards the lane, so Fnatic didn't spot them. Sneak up there. So it's going to be a 2v2.
Движется, что-то началось.
So we have these insanely snowballing matchups between a Fiora and a Riven. Well, the first gank,
довольно забавно. Вот, по крайней мере, вот эта композиция у Edward Gaming мне нравится намного больше.
Caitlyn likes to start shoving the wave though, so Def tried to get there as soon as possible, auto-attacking the wave, you charge up your headshot.
Потому что мне всегда нравится вообще, когда одной кнопкой уничтожают вражеского ассасина.
And Mako are more looking just to poke with the double range against them than all inning. What you normally could do with Caitlyn Morgana is you land the binding, follow up with a trap when someone is stuck for such a long time. Another small thing, notice here Rainover, he started on the top side of the map, so he's going to path down towards the bottom side. That's going to apply pressure on Koro if he's going to push this lane.
Yep, it's all about that minion wave control up top. When you have control as a Caitlyn lane, especially with Morgana at your back, you can be extremely aggressive, just like Huni.
Really bad trade by Koro right here. He walks in into stun range of Huni, then uses his
ничего хорошего у него не получилось, потому что у Риви как минимум больше контроля. Ну и сейчас будет телепорт от Фиоры. А полезного она ничего практически не закупила. Полезного в смысле для стояния на лайне.
That luckily Clearlab is on the complete opposite end of the map.
Yeah, even though that trade evens up teleports, Huni's got such an experience advantage here working with it. He will also probably be able to go up and clear out that pink ward.
В общем, у Хуни дела вообще прям прекрасно.
While the giant wave is there, so that would be some extra value added. Pretty deep ward here on the Wraith camp as well. Clearlab was able to get a little bit of deep vision over on Rainover's side, and that will be the next camp that Rainover goes to. So EDG will have information fairly shortly.
Well, we get a good start for Huni in the bottom lane. Top, again, is what we mentioned, how we can keep pushing it in. If you are the Caitlyn Morgana lane, just keep trading. 2v1 against both Tahm Kench and then the Jinx, and it's harder to reply if you are Fnatic. And we'll also with this Morgana pick. It's funny because a lot of these champions for EDG that haven't shown before in this tournament, they have been spamming them in solo queue. Morgana was there for Mako, Caitlyn for Death, Veigar as well in the mid lane, and this is going to happen over and over. And Reck is a little bit confused.
Small miss. Small miss spot. We'll see if Reckless can find his aim later on. Rainover spotting Clearlab in the jungle will give some information. He actually was caught out by that riposte.
Another matchup I want to touch on is that mid lane because Veigar is such a game changer. If you allow him to stack up early, and the only way to disallow him from stacking up early is to force him to trade in lane and go for those aggressive moves here. Forbidden on LeBlanc, on the Assassin, has the ability to do that, to try and go aggressively. You can see already, Pawn even expends his early teleport in mid lane defensively just to pick up more magic resistance so that he can try and use more of his mana for stacking up the ability.
Ну вообще какой работу проводит.
Let's catch the dark binding game. Almost every time we peek our eyes up here,
Смотрите, преимущество погибом вообще просто чудовищное, но он постоянно прохорашивает, и Фиора может умереть. Вот в чем проблема. Потому что скоро будет 6-й Хуни, и все, в тот же момент умрет Фиора. А Ривен у нас лидирует по крипам, поэтому Хуни будет 6-й раньше. И в опасной ситуации находится. Так, и Клеолов идет на ганг. И надо до 6-го левела. Нет, все, теперь опасно Фьюри вообще чего-либо творить. Потому что у них намного больше возможностей убить. По крайней мере, надо дождаться, когда будет 6-й левел у Фиоры, и тогда можно уже будет что-нибудь попробовать. Так, ну и рейнджховер распалили, поэтому Фиора сейчас должна заварить чего-нибудь где-нибудь. Так, ну и спускается Фабиван.
And this is what I like. Now Fnatic are saying we're going to snowball Huni even further. So EDG, you cannot just sit in 2v2 top because your top lane will fall behind. Killov has spotted it. We have a roam from Vega as well. 3 guys on bottom side soon.
Alright. He does have his grand challenge. He's used it on a level 4 rain over. Flash away from Koro keeps him alive. He will take a turret shot for his troubles. Able to thwart the gank at the cost of ignite for Flash and time in the mid lane from February.
Он маленько опоздал, хотя как бы ничего из этого там все равно не светило.
Koro's going to have to expend his teleport once again. So you talk about, doing something about this top side. There's a teleport here in the brush. Huni may have teleport advantage if Koro feels pressured enough to use it to get back to lane again.
При поддержке Морганы,
the way that Fnatic
просто
made
заглядение.
their stamp, made their name with big Huni teleport plays, there could be an opportunity. The ward is expired.
Just died.
I took too long talking about it, and Koro took too long teleporting back.
The point is still valid.
Really key though
if they could get another ward.
For EDG that Rek'Sai was sitting in that bush or in the jungle of Fnatic, spotted, of course, Reynolds moving down, so they knew, okay, the dive is about to happen, the Blanco's missing in the mid lane, and that's why they could react and defend Koro. Otherwise, it would have been a 3v1 and he would have died super quick.
I have to say though, this top lane CS of the dual lanes is just outstanding. Deft is destroying Reckless and Yellow Star up in the top side, really punishing.
And this was why EDG was sitting in the bush, hiding at level 1. Didn't want to risk going for an all lane and trying to get it. First was they wanted to dodge around the wards to try and force a 2v2 lane with Caitlyn. She's one of these champions, if she doesn't get the 2v2, gets to be bullied. She becomes so useless in the mid game and just have very low impact before she hits the late game items. So this was exactly what EDG wanted for that lane.
Так, Игар у нас 2 тарана и Мерки.
Horn's first pickup is Mercury Treads at 9 minutes.
Довольно необычный выбор.
И
Мейко успел, и сейчас думали, флешится нет вслед за саппортом. Но решили не делать этого. Потому что будет очень тяжело, если Джинкса будет без флеша. Они и так терпят на лайне. И теперь Джинкса у нас будет с киркой. Ну а Кейт с БФом, поэтому сложно будет. Сложно будет Джинкс сейчас.
There's a lot of very aggressive AD carries that are a little bit unhappy with that state because they want to be able to kill that lane 2v2, but that's not happening very often in this map.
Ну и должны обострять сейчас Эдвард Гейминг на топе, пытаться что-нибудь организовать. Так, и шестой Веншховера, и столько народу к нему пришло. И он, конечно же, умрет. И килл ушел полну. И, возможно, еще один будет. Нет, Редбаф все-таки сделал свое дело. И сейчас... Нет, он все-таки Фабиван смог взять еще один килл и трипл килл для Фабивана. Это не очень хорошо. Очень и очень нехорошо. Игар, конечно, тоже взял. Просто ничего не дали сделать. И вот зачем вот он, спрашивается, шел лицом-то туда? И даблбаф для Лебланки. Помимо 3 киллов, это прям мечта.
One of the great things about Tom Kench as well, my first experience with him was meeting one in solo queue and double counter jungling the enemy. Tom Kench can devour something while activating his Q. Oh, here we go.
Так, и в опасности немного Дефт. Смотрите, вообще не боится. И Корал опять умрет. У него нет возможности, и теперь сноубол Фабивана и сноубол Хуни очень и очень хороший. Решили Реклза, ну, не трогать, потому что все равно в лейте он будет гиперкерри, в отличие от Кейтлин. Ну и получив кучу киллов, они забирают вышку, они забирают дракона. Да, 2 крипов он пропускает, что-то как-то он не сконцентрирован. И вышка. Как я и говорил.
Can TP down because we know Deft is going to push his wave. He's already picked it out. You say it, it's going to happen. I say it this time.
Куча итемов уже у Лебланки. Там закончила Марела, купила себе. Ну да, фритайвер. Как-то странно. Эдвард Гейминг. Ну давай уже. Поднялся.
He knows a lot of people are coming, and he's still quick in his mid lane. He has to risk.
Yeah, that's why we'll be looking for the flank, because again, this Fnatic squad has to be very careful with how.
Ну и смотрите, все. Джинкса уже откатила. Все свое отставание от Кейтлин и дела просто замечательно. Чем дальше, тем лучше идут у Фнатиков.
So you have wards on the side of the mid lane. You can see the 2 here near the mid lane tower of EDG. That's something Fnatic could use to stop a potential siege from happening. Holding all in again, he's 2 levels above.
Big difference. That B of sword helping out.
Ну и да, еще и БФ у Ривен. Ну это вообще кошмар. Просто кошмар для команды Эдвард Гейминг. Посмотрим, как они смогут чего-нибудь сделать.
The other thing, the other important factor in controlling vision, Deficio, that you point out, these mid laners, either one can one-shot the other if you're in the fog of war. So either one has the ability to 100% if you get that vision advantage. So there's going to be such a fight over the true site, especially around these mid laners. And a fight in top.
Сейчас умрет.
Going low. Hooney, that's a good pass trading, and Hooney follows up. But their support
стоило ожидать.
want to chase him down, and they will not.
A little bit hyped about the flash. In the end, it didn't do anything, and it died anyway. Look good enough.
Deficio, you sucked all the energy out. Yellowstar and Featherman get caught by the event
Сейчас
horizon.
будет умирать Pawn.
Into the waiting hands. The super mega death rocket signs his death warrant. And EDG are
Кого
on
он
the
ультанул, я
retreat.
немного
They
не
lost
понял.
their mid tower. And Fnatic
Потому что урона-то он вообще нисколько не нанес. И, судя по всему, да, абсолютно все шансы у Fnatic'ов выйти в полуфинал. Судя по всему, переоценил я этот гейминг.
Making it very easy for Fnatic to keep deep vision in the jungle and set up a dive like this and prevent EDG from ever grouping.
Honestly, what's happening is Huni wrecking Koro.
That's also happening. That's also happening. But look at the dive they can set up because they have all the control.
Вот это вот, зачем было движение? Так уходи ты.
What do you use a Veigar right here? Either you flash instantly, but if there's a flash body slam happening, it's so hard to react to your time.
Yeah. Exhausted, and I don't think that primordial burst hit anybody either.
So make it a body slam flash.
3. This is the only time I can talk about this stuff, gentlemen. It's out my system. Unfortunately, South Africa is also losing to Wales, so I kind of deserve that. Yes. Right, let's go. Picks and bans. Fnatic, blue side game 3. GP and Mord are still undefeated because of the rematch. So we'll need to see who's going to take the lead in that regard.
You will have the last pick, and we just saw that driven into Fiora. We might see them be a little bit more aware of the fact that blind picking Fiora might not be the smartest decision if you are EDG, and therefore they maybe want to save that for Koro. But would require them to get like a safe control mage in the mid lane, which is not always EDG's style.
Honestly, if I was EDG, I might even put Koro on something like Malphite and put all my eggs in the deft pawn basket here.
One of the problems about the Malphite though is Huni can play like Echo into it, he can make Fiora into it, and try and really bully him in lane.
They did lose the game he played Echo, didn't they? Oh, no, they won. They won. They were able to defeat AHQ.
Yeah, 8, 5, and 8. 3 KDA.
Oh, the Sivir and Kennen steal.
So EDG,
interesting.
I think the Kennen takeaway is fine. I think they turn a little bit too hard on Sivir for Fnatic. It's not necessarily a must pick for Fnatic in any way. They play Jinx already. There's a lot of picks Reckless can play.
Yeah.
Play the carry position.
Reckless utility picks here being stolen away, I feel like is kind of a trick on EDG because Reckless